If you don't stay down and you never quit, come on over here and sit on the far end of the bench. Up, ladies and gentlemen, bench warmers of all ages. It is time. I have my 10 brackets here. Filled them all out. I have Yanni Diakomahalis as my Hodge Trophy winner. It is finally time. We're spending the week talking about NCAA wrestling. Finally. I've asked Niko for years.
It's madness, not madness. There's a big tournament that I'm coming back to defend my crown. Thank you very much. So yeah, you can get I'll let you have a madness show later on.
I should just put this away then, huh? I guess I won't be needing that. Yes, this is the March Madness show. Niko Bryant, Jimmy Pilato here on the Far End of the Bench YouTube channel live. We are going to bring in our special guest shortly. But want to make sure before we do that, follow at FEOTB Pod, all social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel that you guys are watching now, sign up. I guess I should post a link in the StreamYard, but we'll get that link down there so everybody can sign up. If you win, we are giving away a shirt this year and a gift card to one of our VSN sponsors, which is a good time to tell you we are also brought to you by the Variety Sports Network here on our YouTube channel and everything like that. VSN at Variety_Sports_ just added a new sponsor. So we got plenty of things rolling. And Niko, you know this is going to be difficult for me. So you obviously went out, you found some help somebody that'll be able to match you with your basketball wits.
The biggest college basketball nerd I've ever seen in my life. The biggest college sports nerd I've ever seen in my life. He's a diehard Hoosiers fan. They're back in the tournament. Welcome back to the show. Our Masters expert, our college football expert, and our college basketball expert, Jeremy Fear.
Boys, what's going on? Happy March.
I like March for other reasons, but yeah, I guess it's a good month. I get to enjoy some spring break. I'm in a road game, by the way. If you guys look in the back, that's a D Wade Marquette jersey.
Okay, there you go.
Jeremy loves that.
There we go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I got my old Miami Heat poster in the back there. So I definitely love that, Jimmy. Jimmy, how's you excited for March Madness, not Matt Madness over there?
Well, yeah, I guess I am. I watched the selection show, so that's about as much college basketball as I've watched all year. I'm much more familiar with the D2 landscape, funny enough, because I called those games on the radio. But yeah, no, this will be fun. I'm interested. You guys are probably going to roast some of my picks like you always do. But who knows? Maybe I take the crown this year, and maybe Niko's left crying in the corner just like his Lopes might be in Ball Arena.
Hey, sometimes it's better to not know anything at all than know everything at all because we can because Jeremy, like I said, Jeremy watches more college basketball than anyone I've ever met on this planet, and that may hurt him, and or it can very much help him. That's the beauty of this tournament, the beauty of March Madness.
Sometimes it's better to go by the mascots, Jimmy, than it is by the actual team names. So
I don't go that far. I don't go that far where I have to say, oh yeah, no, an owl will definitely win a fight against an antelope or whatever. It's not even the right matchup. I go based on how well the wrestling program does. I'll explain that here once we get into some of our matchups. But Jeremy, how have you been? I mean, I know that this is your favorite time of the year, but what else has been going on? Anything new?
Yeah, no, I was actually just at the Big Ten tournament for basketball in Chicago. So I got to watch my boys play on Friday, which was really, really cool. And obviously, I know Niko is excited. I will be attending March Madness here on Friday. So that will be – we got the all-session tickets. So, no, life's good. It's a great time of the year and looking forward to obviously this and then right into my favorite time of the year, which is the Masters. So, can't be more exciting time. And obviously with baseball around the corner, who knows how good our Rockies are going to be, but that's a conversation for another time. But yeah, life's good and enjoying March as per usual, especially this year with my boys being in the tournament.
Yeah, it helps not having to be in that first four like you were last year. A little bit better seating now, but yeah, Jeremy said Jeremy and I will both be at the games on Friday. Obviously, my Lopes will be playing Friday night, so I will be in attendance with the Havocs and the boys. And then obviously we will be there for the TCU and the Arizona State or Nevada, depending on the winner of that. So we'll be there that and Sunday. So if you run into us, say what's up. We'll absolutely say what's up. But yeah, the Big Ten championship, that's Jeremy's staple. And I want to give a shout out to Jeremy's brother also calling the games. Joey being a big baller, he's calling the Big Ten championship for the Ohio State Network, right? Or whatever.
He was actually in Minnesota all week doing the women's basketball, and they made a run. They actually beat us. Fun fact: Indiana women's basketball won the whole Big Ten this past year as far as the regular season, and OSU's women's made a 24-point comeback in the semifinals and beat Indiana. So my brother was there for 4 games. He got to meet some unbelievable. He got to meet Greg Oden. He got to meet Evan Turner. So some notable NBA guys, and he calls games on the Big Ten Network. Not only basketball, he does, I think, every sport: lacrosse, baseball, basketball, soccer. So he's loving it, and he's going to be calling some more of the women's game because their first round for them is in Columbus.
On a side note, I gotta get your brother's number so that maybe I could start some more networking, because right now I that's like my dream, obviously. But no, that's awesome. I didn't even know that. That's cool for him.
He's really taken off into it, and he loves it, and he's calling a lot of Ohio State stuff. So he's on a good path, man, and we'll definitely forward to the contact information over as he's progressing nicely in the world, and he's got obviously exciting time of the year for him for obviously March being craziness.
Yeah, no, not that I don't love my students. If they happen to use the research skills that I taught them, it's creepy, man. They tried to find my TikTok the other night. I had to make it private, but not that I don't love that, but obviously sports is passion number one, and that's why we're all here. So are you guys good to just get rolling? I have it in the order, so we're going to talk about, for the listeners, because if you listened to us last year, both on the college football show and the March Madness show, it went a little long. We were a little long-winded. We were talking about everything. We're not going to do all of the games this year. We're going to talk about all the first-round games, kind of break it down by quadrant. We'll give Final Four predictions and then obviously champion predictions. But we're going to be breaking it down. If you're following along on your ESPN Bracket Challenge app, it goes in the order that you'd see it. So we're going to start in the South, which actually means that we have to talk about Alabama on a college basketball show instead of a college football show. I don't know if we really want to talk about that other situation going on. If you guys look at my bracket once they're released, you'll see why. Mine looks a little bit different, but matchups: Alabama will get the winner of the play-in game between Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, Southwest Missouri State. Maryland, West Virginia is the 8-9. San Diego State, Charleston is the 5-12. Virginia versus Furman is the 4-13. And Creighton and NC State, the 6-11. Baylor and UC Santa Barbara, the 3-14. And then Utah State and I got to look in here, but it'll scroll across the screen. They're scrolling across the screen. Let's just go ahead. Let's get into it. I'll let you guys kind of dictate where we go because I'm just a facilitator. I said it a couple weeks ago when we were talking NBA basketball. I feel like I should go ask if anybody needs a fresh drink, if I should go fluff the pillows. Probably not going to be needed here, but let's go ahead. Let's start breaking it down wherever you guys want to start. Niko,
I'm cool starting at the top. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's just start with the top because I mean, like I said, it's the Brandon Miller show, right? It's the best player, quote unquote, in college basketball with one of the worst stories in college basketball. I mean, look, we talk about Bama football this, Bama football that. Bama gets a lot of hate for it, including from Jeremy on this show, a guy that notably hates the state of Alabama. Yes. Let's put it that way. But there is no denying how good Brandon Miller is. Off the court things aside, I mean, if the off the court stuff wasn't going on, he'd probably be the player of the year. He'd be Naismith player of the year, quote unquote Heisman Trophy of college basketball. But this Bama team, like I said, they're one of the hottest teams in basketball. Not only do they know how to play defense really well, they can match up with everybody 1 through 5, and Brandon Miller taking off of this team, it's hard, very hard to see them losing to Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, or Southern whatever. I don't even know what the other team
Southeast Missouri or Southwest Missouri State. I might be in trouble with the state of Missouri because I didn't do good enough check before I put that in. Who knows?
Yeah, no, I mean, ultimately, Alabama is definitely the number 1 overall seed. They are the top dog. I mean, they were perfect at home this year, 15-0. beating some notable teams at home. The Brandon Miller story is obviously a different time or a different subject for different time, but they pretty much rolled through the SEC as far as the regular season is concerned. The SEC was a very interesting league this year. I felt like you had Alabama, and then you had a bunch of like good teams, and then it wasn't anybody like, okay, it's Alabama and blah 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 fighting for the championship. It was Alabama really kind of separated themselves. Yes, A&M had a good season, and we'll get an A&M in a minute, but Alabama obviously number 1 overall seed. I don't see their path being very difficult. They're playing in Birmingham. They're playing a couple teams that I thought they got the easiest side of the draw for sure, as far as the 5 seeds being San Diego State, Virginia, who's always a hit or miss in the tournament. I definitely see an easier path for Alabama than some other number 1 seeds.
Is that the reason they got the number 1 overall 1 seed? Because that was kind of a point of contention. I was watching the selection show. I'm sure you guys were too. That was a little bit of a surprise. But what do you guys think? Do they deserve to be the number 1 overall team in the tournament?
I didn't think they deserved to be the number 1 overall team in the tournament. I think Kansas deserved to be the number 1 team overall in the tournament. And for Jimmy, to give you a perspective, the college basketball is divided into 4 quadrants: quad 1, 2, 3, and 4. Kansas had 20 quad 1 wins, which is obviously the highest. And quad 1 is determined by opponent and if it's on the road versus at home. So, for example, if like a team like CU could be a quad 1 road win, but could be a quad 2 home win. So it depending on the quads is depending on how good the teams have been performed throughout the year. I thought Kansas deserved to be the number 1 overall quad 1 team, but the fact that I think that they got blown out by Texas in the Big 12 championship game really hurt them as far as the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah, the Big 12 being as good as it was all year too, easily the best tournament in college basketball. You would have think that, look, if Kansas would have won that game, they definitely would have been the overall number 1 seed. I think taking into a factor that they won a Power 5 conference championship and dominated all the way through helped them a lot. Obviously, you could say the same thing for Purdue being there as well. It's funny, two of the 4 number 1 seeds are all are lost in their conference championship. Houston and Kansas being the 2, and maybe that factors in where they landed in terms of overall number 1, overall number 2, overall number 3, depending on how you want to see it. But like I said, what Bama did and how well they dominated overall a pretty down year for the SEC. It was no doubt that they probably were going to come in as number 1 after what happened on Sunday and Saturday night.
And not to keep dragging this on, but I know that this year has been kind of an interesting year where there's been a lot of shuffling in the top 10. I mean, to give you a perspective, I know preseason rankings aren't always the most accurate representation of college basketball, but I mean, Creighton was a top 10 team going into the beginning of the year, and they're on the 6th seed line right now. So that gives you an example of how close these teams are as far as, in parallels. There's not much separation between the 4. I think you could throw any of them in there and you'd have a good case. But I think with Alabama winning their conference tournament and winning the regular season, I think that's why they ultimately gave it to them. Plus, they've handled business a lot. So, and that 15-0 home record was definitely a good indicator. So, I have Alabama in my first pick. Definitely not even a question. There's no Virginia against UMBC. None of that this year.
Yeah, I have the Tide. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. If it does happen, I will not be that upset. That's a game that I don't care if I lose. There's gonna be some sort of cosmic karma retribution, and that's all I got to say about that. I think Bama's gonna be easily into that second round, and we'll see where it goes from there. Nico, do you have anything different?
No, nothing in terms of that. Being in Birmingham, Birmingham's 45 minutes away from Tuscaloosa. It's a complete home game. It's not even a question. And look, you think you think that Bama football fans are crazy? Bama basketball fans just came out of the woodworks and realized, oh shit, our football team sucked this year. Let's root for basketball so we have something to root on. So yeah, they'll show up.
I wish my team had that problem. I think every school would wish they had that problem.
Sucking at 11-2 as a football program, man. Well, what a world that would be like.
A down year and they won the Sugar Bowl. A down year.
and kind of won it easily. So
yeah.
And they're going to have the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. But that's again
possibly the number 1. I mean, no, he's not going to be number 1, but he's going to be a top 3 pick possibly in the NBA draft.
Yeah.
Depending on how you're going to go.
How are you going to give that guy millions and millions of dollars as a number 3, as a top 5 pick? He can't even handle the minuscule money that he's barely making in the NFL. Oh, okay. All right. I'm getting off track. 8-9 matchup, Maryland versus West Virginia. The Terrapins out of the Big 10, West Virginia out of the Big 12. I have Maryland winning this game to play Alabama in the second round. This is a total shot in the dark for me, so I'll send it to you guys for the actual analysis.
Go ahead, Nico.
For me, I'm going with the better conference here. Obviously, 2 teams that I don't know very well. West Virginia, I watched a couple games during the regular season when they played some Big 12 games against Kansas State and then Kansas. I remember watching those 2 games. And Maryland was a middle-of-the-road team. Jeremy, with a Big 10 expert here, may know a little bit more about them. But I like what Bob Huggins does and his coaching ability in the tournament and his ability to win games that look like they're going to be nail biters, that he can pull it off. And I think West Virginia gets the round 1 win here.
Yeah, no. So this is an interesting stat. So I looked this up. So Maryland is one of those teams. So let me back up here. West Virginia was 7-11 in their conference. So again, one of these middle of the pack. And again, I agree, Nico. The West Virginia squad played in by far the best conference this year, top to bottom, the Big 12. I unfortunately, as much as I love my Big 10 teams, I'm going to be fading Maryland this year. But it's funny enough, they actually have the highest and lowest difference in win percentage in a home versus away games. So they have about a 62, almost a 63% difference, meaning that on the road they were awful. And I'm talking like awful. But at home they didn't lose a game. So they're one of those teams that's like time and place, situation where they're playing is a huge indicator. I think West Virginia, they were 13 again. Another one of these teams that was tough at home but struggled on the road. 13-4 at home and 3-8 on the road. They do have some notable wins, but I'm going to take leadership and a great coach, Bob Huggins, to at least advance here to play Alabama. So I'm taking the Mountaineers.
I'm good with being the lone man out. It feels like that one's a shot in the dark no matter which way you look at it, because we have to remember these are college kids. They may be up to play, they may not be up to play.
These 8 to 9 seed games too.
Well, if you're not up to play in the March Madness tournament, I don't know what you're doing. So they'll all be ready to play. It's just a matter of it really boils
whether
down
or not it'll happen.
Yeah, exactly. It boils down to, and unfortunately we'll get into this. I have some notes on this, but gets into where they're playing is a huge indicator of how teams perform, if they're traveling and all that stuff. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah. Moving forward, the 5 seed in this quadrant of the bracket, San Diego State taking on 12 seed Charleston. Charleston was kind of like the darling of the selection show. That was one of the under the radar teams. I know that this is the 2 years in a row now that they've made the tournament. So this is going to be one of those matchups. And the 12-5, if you're going based on the numbers, it's actually one of the places where you see the upsets happen quite a bit when you have that 12-5 seeded matchup. So I have Charleston winning. That's my first technical upset seed-wise of the tournament. And I have them moving forward to play in the round of 32. So, Jeremy, what do you think about this one with the Aztecs and Charleston? I don't know Charleston's matchup.
Yeah, no, a really, really. So this is an interesting matchup. I think Jimmy, you kind of hit the hammer on the head almost per se, or on this one. I think Charleston relies a lot on the 3-point ball. I mean, they're almost. I'm not going to say that they're the Golden State Warriors, but if you look at a shot chart, Charleston, obviously the winning of the conference is huge for them. They have a veteran backcourt. They rely heavily on the 3. And ultimately, San Diego State is one of the top 20, top 15 defensive 3-point rating team in the country. So while I think while I think Charleston is a darling pick, I don't necessarily think that I think San Diego State's going to take it to them. Remember, San Diego State also won the Mountain West. So they're no pushover. And there's a couple teams in the Mountain West that are there, along with Utah State, Boise State, and a couple others. So I'm actually going to stick on the 5 seed. This is always the most dangerous seeding, 5 versus 12. It can go either way, to be honest, but I think I'm going to go with the Aztecs on this one.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna red Charleston as well. Look, they're a team that has won, who tied the record for, or not the record, but tied for most wins in college basketball this year at 31 wins. They were a team that were ranked preseason 19. Obviously, that was pretty high. and say what you want, they still performed very, very well. This team is a very, very good team. A team that arguably could have gotten an at-large bid if they did not win their conference, and they're that good. Mountain West is one of the worst divisions when it comes to betting on them and March Madness. Look at Colorado State last year, absolute dog water. They got whooped in the first round. San Diego State got beat the last couple of years as well. Utah State, a team that great in their conference tournament, but struggled when it got to the major tournament. Mountain West is not a team you bet on, and when it comes to the to March Madness, the only team that I would argue and say that feed goes against is San Diego State. But with a red hot team like Charleston that dominated their league and that's as hot as they are, I think this is the 12-5. If you're looking for one, this is the one.
Yeah. Like I said, we go either way. It could go either way. Both these teams, I think, match up well. I mean, I know the committee does their research here, but Niko, I agree, and Jimmy, I do agree. Well, I'm taking San Diego State. It's a coin toss.
It does play into effect too. If you have to win to get into the tournament, like win a lot of games in a row, go on a streak. We see it in professional sports when you got the team that is the wild card that ends up winning 8 games down the stretch. They normally can go on a little bit of a run. You get hot, you ride that wave as far as you can. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Moving forward to the 4-13, Furman, which is a school I didn't even know existed as the 13th seed, is going up against Virginia, who is notable because they did win the national championship within recent memory, but they also have that embarrassing 16-1 upset that happened against them as well. So the Cavaliers and Furman going head-to-head in this matchup. Jeremy, or Niko, let's start with you. Where are you going with this one?
Well, look, it was a down year for the ACC. It absolutely was. I mean, look, you had the AP #1 team at North Carolina not make the tournament after starting the season as AP #1, which is absolutely crazy. 1 year after losing in the national championship. So this the ACC is very, very down. But Tony Bennett knows how to win games in March. And look, you say what you want to say, but about that UMBC loss, that was a once in a lifetime thing. And I think Virginia takes care of business here. Look, I don't know much about Furman, but I know that Virginia will have their boys ready. And I think this is a matchup where it's going to be a tough one in the round after that. But I'm going to go Virginia here.
Yeah. Niko, I'm actually going to agree with you on this one as well. This game is going to be a slow. I mean, I was looking at the lines earlier today for the over/under on total points, and this one was significantly lower than the rest of them. I think it was like 140 or something. It might have been even lower, like almost down to like 135, which is not a lot of points compared to a lot of other lines that are out there. If you remember, the only thing that I can tell you about Furman, they were actually literally one shot away from going into the tournament last year, and Chattanooga in the tournament in their conference tournament in the Southern Conference, hit a half-court buzzer beater to send them to the tournament last year. So Furman is a veteran squad. They have 2 guys. It's Jalen Slauson and Mike Bothwell, who are really, really good. This team is dangerous from 3, but they rely heavily on the 3. And we know Virginia plays a slow style of basketball. So if you get into it and you get to the back and forth here, Virginia's going to grind you down while Furman's going to be shooting a lot of threes. And if Virginia can control the pace of the game, I think Virginia's going to take this one and run with it. So my pick's Virginia.
This will pop up throughout the show. If you look on the bottom of the screen, this is my reaction whenever I try and talk about basketball on this show. This is the first time. It won't be the last time that you see this. I'm picking Virginia as well. I have them losing in an upset in the next round. I think the upset doesn't happen in round 1 for them this year. It happens in round 2. I have Charleston, like I said, making quite a bit of a run. If we went through the entire bracket, I'm pretty sure I'd be roasted pretty much to a crisp. But that we don't have to talk about that. We'll just have to know that Niko knows what I'm talking about. I'll explain it afterwards. I don't want to be that big of an idiot. Creighton versus NC State. This is one of those matchups where I picked NC State because they're going to finish in the top 5 of the wrestling tournament. And I'm like, yeah, why not? Put a little faith in the Wolfpack. And Creighton, I don't know. There's something about Nebraska that I just don't really like. And being, that's where I'm sitting with this one. It's one of those upsets. I'm either going to hit a 12-5 or I'm going to hit this 11-6, or I don't hit either of them. You shouldn't be listening to me anyways. The two that you should be listening to are the other guys on this show. But what are we thinking for NC State and Creighton?
So Creighton, like I said previously, was a preseason top 10 team. I have them going pretty far in the tournament, actually. I think they're a really, really well-rounded team. They've beaten teams, and if you look at their bracket, I mean, they've beaten teams. They've beaten UConn. They've beaten Xavier. They lost to Texas by 5, who's a 2 seed. They lost to Arizona by 2. They're a 2 seed. They beat Providence, who's in the tournament, Arizona State as well. And Arkansas. So I really like Creighton. I think they're a really well-rounded team. I think the Big East this year arguably was probably the second best conference. And I think just what you said, Jimmy, and what Niko reiterated was ACC being a little bit down this year. I haven't really watched a lot of NC State basketball, but I think this Creighton team has the ability of the experience to go pretty far. So I'm taking Creighton.
Yeah, I'm riding with Creighton here with Jeremy. Look, this may be a theme that you may see. I'm very high on a lot of these Big East teams. I think that what they went through last weekend in the Big East tournament, that was an all-out war of a tournament. If you're a basketball fan, you should have turned on those games last weekend because the matchups that the Big East was popping out at Madison Square Garden were unbelievable. And Creighton right now is a team that, look, they got popped by Xavier in the Big East tournament. But Xavier with Sean Miller, former Arizona guy, is a very, very good club. We'll talk about here in a little bit. But I think this Creighton team has all the makings. Like, they are very, very well tested. In a like I said, like Jeremy said, arguably the second best conference in college basketball this year. They are tested. They are very, very, very tested. And NC State squeaked in, right? They squeaked in. They're one of the last 4 in, right? One of those last 4.
I think they were the next 4 in. So there's like the next 4 in, and then there's the last 4 in. They were on the next 4 in line. They have beaten some good teams. They have beaten Miami and Duke. I mean, don't get me wrong. NC State could be a team where they could make some noise and they could be pesky. I just think, like Niko, like you said, better conference in Creighton. My thing with Creighton concerns me, if they don't have a very big bench. So if they get in foul trouble or if they have a lack of depth, that can be a big problem for them.
They're running 7 guys, and they're subbing the same guys in every other 5 minutes.
Yeah. So I'm taking Creighton. I think Niko's taking Creighton, and Jimmy's the odd man out here at NC State, sounds like.
I'm always the odd man out when it comes to basketball because I don't know what's going on here. No, I think that's interesting with the foul trouble. It's so different when you have the hard 5 foul rule in college. Yeah. It's not. It doesn't seem like it should be that big of a difference. But when you have these kids that just – and it could be the ref too. That's the other thing. The referee can affect so much more in a college basketball game than say maybe one of these playoff games in the NBA where, like, this guy looks like he's fouling a whole bunch. He's up to 4, and it's 2.5 minutes into the second half. You're like, shit. This is Hopefully I can put in his sub and we don't get 40 dropped on us, so we have to make a comeback. But that's an interesting factor that you don't always think about.
And Niko, that will be sorry, Jimmy. That will be the first session of Game 2 in Denver. So we'll see Creighton play. We're going to see Creighton play, and we'll see Baylor and UCSB play here next.
Yeah, that was the game that I was moving to, sticking with the Big 12 being one of the better conferences. And we're talking about another former national champion in the Baylor Bears from a couple of years ago. They are taking on UCSB out of Santa Barbara, 3 versus 14. This one was easy for me because I know I really like Baylor's coach. I heard him on a couple podcasts this year. I think that he's got like a really cool philosophy with how he runs his program. And I know the athletes are going to be better at Baylor than they are at UCSB. That plain and simple. You're going to have guys that jump out of the gym for Baylor, and you might have 1 or 2. Baylor can send out 3 lineups that are probably more athletic than a couple of lines that UCSB could put together.
Yeah, Scott Drew, brother of Bryce Drew, GCU head coach. So a little bit coaching tree there. But yeah, Scott Drew has look a Baylor team that hasn't been playing great. If I'm being honest with each other, they've struggled at the end of the year, but they were red hot at the beginning, and they turned some good wins around. And like I said, I think they're going to be too much for UCSB. I think I think UCSB is a very, very good ball club. They're a team that I believe they won their conference championship on Saturday night and barely squeaked by through that whole tournament and then dominated the championship. So they're a very good team, UCSB. They can hit threes, like knock down good shots. But like Jimmy said, Baylor can guard everybody 1 through 5. That like I said, in past years they had Davion Mitchell. Off night they had Jeremy Sochan. They had a lot of guys that are just very athletic, human beings, and I think Baylor will just be way too much.
Yeah, I'm also going to agree with you guys. I think Baylor rolls these guys. USC Irvine just hasn't played anybody. Those are one of the teams that, it's a big indicator of can they match up, physicality-wise, like Jimmy noted, against Baylor. Baylor has 3 guards, and ultimately you need veteran guard play in the tournament to go far. Having a big man that's, a very dominant force is big. But Baylor, I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise that Baylor, kind of maybe struggled in the Big 12, the Big 12 tournament, I should say. They did well in the Big 12 regular season. But it's just a reflection of kind of where teams are trending, and sometimes they need a little kick in the butt to kind of get back on track here. So I think this will be a good game, and I'm kind of upset because when I saw these come out, I'm happy they're both coming to Denver, but I had Baylor and Creighton originally, even before the bracket came out, going pretty far. And if they both win, they'll play each other in round 2. So disappointing there, but I think Baylor rolls these guys. I don't think UCSB can match up against them 1 through 5.
Are the games in Denver? They're at Ball Arena, right? They're not using any the Coliseum or any of the other venues. They're all Ball Arena.
They're all Ball Arena all day.
Ball Arena, which is nice.
So if you have tickets to the Creighton NC State game or the Baylor UCSB game, those are the first couple opportunities that you're going to be able to see Jeremy and Niko say what's up to those guys. I'm in North Carolina currently. Otherwise, I try and figure out a way to just be hanging out around the arena. But definitely say what's up. If you have a far end of the bench shirt, maybe, Niko, you can sign a couple autographs. That might be.
I don't know about that. Oh, Jeremy's even rocking the old.
Yeah,
the OG merchandise. Oh, Missouri, Utah State. Missouri out of the SEC, Utah State out of the Mountain West. We've talked about both of those conferences. 10-7 matchup, and it's interesting because I see Missouri in the sports that I normally watch as a team that can be pretty decent. I know nothing about their basketball program, and Utah State. I know they're normally okay. Like the Mountain West is the conference of teams that are always okay, and then every now and then they'll have a pop off year and go and compete for a conference title. I'm not sure if that's one of these years or maybe it's already coming past. I have Utah State getting the upset over 7 seed Missouri and moving on to the next round, but obviously that's just a blind guess.
I'm going to stick with my theme that the Mountain West is not good in this tournament, and I'm going to stick with Mizzou. I like I said, I don't know much about these teams. I know Utah State has been pretty good the last couple of years, sniffing around a top 10 seed, honestly. I think it was 2021. But I think this Mizzou team with the SEC that usually does halfway decent when it comes to March Madness. Not by any means a powerhouse.
They play other sports in the SEC besides football?
Yeah, it's weird, right? So, but I'm gonna go Mizzou here.
Yeah, I'm gonna get. I think this is a no-brainer game. I think Missouri absolutely rolls these guys. If you look at, I'll get a little nerdy here, but for the diehards, if you look at there's a really good indicator of where teams are how they're going to progress in the tournament based on turnover margin. And turnover margin is a big indicator of which teams take care of the ball versus how the other teams are playing. Missouri actually ranks in the top quadrant per se of winning because of a turnover margin, while Utah State is actually at a disadvantage in this turnover battle. And one of the indicators of how teams can get beat and knocked out early is if teams are forcing a lot of turnovers and getting more possessions. So it'll be and granted, both these teams can score a lot of points, but it boils down to the fact that Missouri is really good at creating havoc and turning the ball over. And when Utah State doesn't value their possession, so I have some predictions about this, but I think Missouri is one of those teams you have to look out for. That they have the guard play to go far.
All right, you guys you changed my mind for the first time tonight. My picks are for sale if you can make a good enough argument. I guess I'll switch to Missouri, but if Utah State ends up pulling off that first round upset, I am not going to let you two hear the end of it. I will tell you that right now. And it doesn't matter because I didn't have them moving on. I had Utah State losing in the next round anyway, so I can switch it to Missouri. I'm fine with that. I'll roll with the Tigers, but I'm just here saying it right now. If it happens the other way, I'm gonna be gloating a little bit, taking a victory lap, even though I lost. Last game in this quadrant here for the South, it's Arizona 2 seed taking on Princeton out of the Ivy League 15 seed. This one it just comes down to athletes, and there's certain sports that Ivy League schools really dominate in. Obviously, lacrosse is one of them. I'm sure Niko is. I know that Niko is very familiar with the Ivy League lacrosse, but Ivy League basketball just doesn't roll off the tongue.
Yeah, Princeton won Saturday at home as the lower seeded team. Weirdly enough, against I believe it was Harvard. Look, it's Arizona coming off a massive win over UCLA in the Pac-12 championship. Look, this Arizona team has a lot of the makings. It may be the toughest test Bama may face on their way to a national championship. I'll say that, right? It could be because Arizona plays a style of basketball that is great defensively, and they'll punish you offensively if you make the wrong mistake. I'm going with Arizona here. Arizona is a team that I like a lot, and that Pac-12 championship game showed me quite a bit from this Arizona team. So I'm writing Arizona the first round very easily.
Yeah, I mean it's a no-brainer for me, and I mentioned it earlier, but I'll mention it again. Princeton's got to travel all the way out to California to go play Arizona, who they're playing in Sacramento. Granted, Arizona's resume is obviously a lot better than Princeton. But hey, I know this seems like a slam dunk, no problem, easy, win it, let's move on type of game. But there's a reason why they play the games, right? So I'm not saying this is going to be an upset.
There's going to be one of those that we're like,
yeah, you know it's coming. That's the problem is you know it's coming. You just don't know where it's coming. That's the key. And try to predict upsets in this tournament. I don't think this is an upset. I think Arizona rolls these guys. I actually have Arizona getting bounced out in round 2 by Missouri. I think Missouri is one of those teams that could create a lot of noise that nobody's thinking about. But Arizona is one of those teams that they played Indiana this year. They beat us up pretty good. They have good guard play. But they have a force in the middle with Ballo. And I can easily see these guys playing Alabama in the Elite 8 game easily. But then again, there's some dangerous teams that I think they create a lot of problems for them. Creighton, one of them, Baylor being another. I think Missouri creates a lot of problems for these guys. So that's for another time, but I'm rolling with Arizona, no problem here.
I have Arizona in my Final Four, so
that also could happen. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like you said, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah. That's every matchup for the South quadrant. And before we start talking about the East, I want to remind everybody, if you're watching live, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment. We'll be able to see those. We'll be able to interact. If you have a thought on one of our predictions so far, you can be sure to chime in and everything like that. Be sure to follow at FEOTB Pod on all social medias. That is a requirement. If you win the bracket challenge, you have to be following and subscribe to be able to get your swag, which is going to be merchandise plus a gift card to one of our Variety Sports Network sponsors. Now it is time to move forth. Onward, gentlemen, to the Eastern bracket. Round of 64 matchups: Purdue, Texas Southern, or Farley Dickinson, Memphis, Florida Atlantic, Duke, Oral Roberts, Tennessee, Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns, Kentucky versus Providence as the 6 and 11, Kansas State, Montana State, Michigan State, USC, Marquette, and Vermont, the Catamounts. Do you guys know a catamount is just a bobcat? I don't know why they needed to make up a whole nother name. Yeah, exactly. That's what I did when I looked it up yesterday. I was like, what is a catamount? It's just a cougar. Oh, I see cougars every week. That doesn't make any sense. It's an interesting bracket. This is where we talk about those whoever got the first seed, the number one overall seed, might have changed some things. But let's go. We'll go from the bottom up, because I am, the D Wade Marquette stuff. I'm currently recording from a Marquette household. That is, that's what I've been hearing about for the last couple of days. Marquette versus Vermont. I have Marquette winning. Obviously, I have to say that for legal purposes. If you see me blink 3 times, then you know something is wrong. But I've known about Vermont for a couple of years. One of the guys on a podcast that I listen to is the broadcaster for them. I just don't think, like, it's cool that they won. It's cool that they're not a 16 seed. They're a 15 seed, but that's a tough draw still. Like, playing a 2 seed, it's not like you celebrate going, yes, we're the 15 and not the 16. It's going to go well. No, this is still going to be – if you win, you got to play a perfect game and hope that they play the worst game of their season. That's the level of competition that I'm picturing in my head when we see this 2 versus 15. But I'll let you guys go ahead and take over.
Go ahead, Nick.
So Marquette, a team that dominated the Big East tournament, absolutely dominated. They have this white boy lefty named Kolek, who looks like Manu Ginobili. I kid you not, when he's playing basketball. The dude hits wacky off 1 foot shots that is just absolutely wild. So look, I'm taking Marquette here. Marquette's a team that some of my brackets I'll have them in the Final Four. I'll say it. Jeremy's the weirdo that only makes 1. So kudos to him. But Marquette will be in some of my Final Fours, because I think that highly of this team. But like I said, they're a very, very tested team, very, very good team. All these Big East teams, especially, all are teams that like I said, when you go through a tough conference schedule, you weed out the weak, in my opinion. You can see, like, hey, like these guys night in, night out playing to good, hard games against UConn, against Xavier, against Providence, against whoever you want to insert name here. And Marquette is very, very well tested, and I'm taking the Big East champs here pretty handedly.
So I'll back up here. This bracket, this East region, is just it's the hardest region by far to pick this year. I think personally, the 1 and 2 seeds are the weakest of the 4 brackets. Being that,
are you sure you're not just saying that because you're an Indiana fan?
I think there's a lot of different ways that both these 1s and 2 seeds can get beat. I had a really hard time picking this game. Here's the reason why. Yes, I see Marquette's fast tempo, fast offense. Your guy Tyler Kolek hitting crazy shots, but I also see a team in Vermont that has won 15 straight. They have a veteran backcourt. They have they're in the top 25 in assist to turnover ratios. They have really good experience. They have seniors all over the court. They were in the tournament last year. They got beat, but they were in the tournament last year. They played St. Mary's. They played USC. It's not like a Princeton where they haven't played. They've played. I'll tell you who they've played in the tournament. They've played St. Mary's, USC, Colgate, and Iona, which are all in the tournament. But they've played guys. Granted, the Big East is obviously Marquette has played. They've played Purdue, and they got beat by them. They played UConn. I went with Marquette to be on the safe side, but this region is just so scary. I freak out about this region. I could easily see Vermont winning this game just because of the experience. I'm also worried that Marquette also peaked a little bit too early by winning the Big East tournament, like you said, Nico, going through the gauntlet of the Big East. But I'm going to go with Marquette here on this one to be safe.
Those are all arguments I would use if I was a Vermont fan. Like, yeah, they've been beat up all season. They have the toughest route to get to the tournament anyways. It is. I mean, it does play a factor when you got guys that are banged up or guys that are playing hard minutes, no slouches, no nights off. It's hard just mentally to keep that focus. So,
absolutely.
And you still got to win through 5 rounds of the tournament to even get close to being a national champion. It'll be interesting to see how these top teams especially continue on. Moving upward, Michigan State, the 7, taking on USC out of the Pac-12, otherwise known as Nico.
Conference of Champions, baby.
Who do you got in this?
Well, I don't think your Conference of Champions are going very far here, Nico. I think Michigan State, aka it's January, February Izzo. And Izzo
hasn't been Izzo in a long time, Jer.
And
has not been Izzo in a long time.
And there's a couple reasons why I kind of like Michigan State here. I think they didn't play their best game of basketball against Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. I think they're going to use that as a little bit of fuel. USC's got to travel all the way to Columbus, which is a long flight. and it'll be a very heavy Michigan State crowd in that arena. I can guarantee you that. I think Tom Izzo's ability, and granted, Dan Hurley, the USC's coach, is a well-renowned coach in in college basketball. The Hurley family is a huge family name. I think USC was on the bubble. They were a bubble team. I think if it wasn't Michigan State on the 7 line, I think Rutgers should have been in this position over USC. But that's just me. That's an argument for another time. So I'm taking Michigan State. I'm taking Michigan State pretty easily in this side.
All I want to say is, look, I love the Conference of Champions, but the guy who labeled the Conference of Champions, his team is leaving the Conference of Champions to the SEC, which is quote unquote the Conference of Football Champions. So yeah, I'm gonna ride Michigan State here too. I don't trust this USC team at all. I really don't. The Pac-12 is obviously very weak this year, outside the top couple teams. So I'm gonna ride Michigan State.
Quick anecdote on Tom Izzo. That was one of the first real, outside of the actual game topics that I remember covering back when I was in Gunnison on the radio. That was when Tom Izzo yelled at the player and everybody was like, oh, he's too mean. He's too mean. And then his players came out and he's like, no, we are too soft. He is trying to get the best out of me. I am fine if he yells at me. And it worked that year. Tom Izzo is like that guy. You don't want to see a Michigan State team at this time of year. When the calendar flips to February.
Yeah. They beat up my boys this year, Jimmy. They could. We beat them. They beat us up real good. I respect Tom Izzo a lot. He's one of my favorite coaches.
I just like a coach that's not afraid to coach his style, even though it's going to come back negatively on him. And his players obviously have his back, so they love playing for him too. I think that too. They have the guy that picked up the other dude. He missed an easy layup or something, and the guy was hanging his head. He had another senior come over and lift up his chin, physically put his hand up. It's like, no, we don't hang our head in this program. We're here to try and win. We're here to play hard for the entire 48 minutes. I think that game, the Spartans are a feisty team in that matchup. Kansas State, Montana State. I already told Nico, Jeremy, I might as well break the ice. I picked Montana State. Don't ask me why. I said Big Sky forever, and I didn't even play in the Big Sky. It's just there's no reasoning behind it. I want you to sell me on the other side, if I'm being honest here.
I'll sell you both ways, Jimmy. I'll start with probably one of the best stories in college basketball, Keontae Johnson, a guy that had cardiac arrest at Florida, was in the hospital in the ICU for up to a couple weeks. He got his second chance at Kansas State, and he has Kansas State playing very, very good basketball. They like I said, they fought in a great Big 12, came out as a top 4 seed, I believe, and they still have a great story. Keontae Johnson is balling for them. 17 points per game. Are you kidding me? After what he went through, it's a great story. To combat that argument and to go with what your pick is, Jimmy, that might help you here a little bit is last 3 March Madness tournaments, there have been 3 14 versus 3 upsets. Those 3 teams came from the Big 12.
The Big Sky?
No. They came from the
team
Big
that
12.
got upset was the Big 12.
Came from the Big 12. So if you're looking for that team that lost in the Big 12 as a 3 versus 14, Kansas State may be that. Look, it's a weird trend. It absolutely is. But if it's one that you're like, maybe I'll ride with that one. That's one you got to think about. But look, I'm not betting with that. Like I said, I don't bet with trends, which I probably should. I'd make more money, but I'm gonna go with Kansas State here and Keontae Johnson. Absolutely, I think this team could make some noise. Honestly, there's a very, very good ball club in a tough conference, like we've been talking about the Big 12 this whole time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you, Nico. I think I'm obviously going to take Kansas State here. Well, let's first and foremost, Jerome Tang was the head coach of the year this year in college basketball from Kansas State, rightfully so. I mean, that turnaround for that program from where they were to 23-9 record is very impressive. So that I applaud him for that. I'm taking Kansas State here. The one again, Nico, I see what you're saying. This also concerns me is Kansas State does turn over the ball a lot, and Montana State plays a slow style basketball. They force turnovers. They get to the free throw line. They're one of the best free throw percentage shooting teams in the country. Hence why they have lost once since mid-January. So they have definitely understand winning. I took Kansas State. Again, this is the toughest bracket. I can see this was probably another out of the other games. This was another tough game that I had trouble picking, unlike Michigan State. Kansas State, I think, squeaks it out. The game being in North Carolina had the travel factor. I'm going to throw that back in there. But I'm gonna roll with a potential Wildcat on Wildcat matchup.
I say that a Bobcat's not too different than a Wildcat. I'm sticking with Montana State just because Nico threw out that 14. I had my finger over Kansas State the whole time, like cardiac arrest. He pulled at my heartstrings, but then he brought the logic back into it, and I think logic.
It's not great logic. It's just weird trends.
I teach social studies. If I can make it sound like it's true, I'll roll with it. So that's where I'm sitting. I'll be the odd man out again. Montana State over Kansas State for myself. Niko and Jeremy both have Kansas State. Listen to them. Kentucky versus Providence. Providence again out of the Big East. And the Friars. They have one of the cooler mascots, I think, in the entire tournament. The Friars and the Wildcats. Obviously, Kentucky is a basketball powerhouse. Calipari is synonymous with college basketball at this point. Like him, Boeheim, those guys that have been at the programs for forever that you can't really remember. A guy, Coach K, before he retired this past season. I went with Kentucky. I didn't know that Providence was in the Big East. I didn't know that they would have been tested, but it's still Kentucky. They still play just as many really good games. Niko, you're smiling. Do you have an upset brewing in this one?
I'll start because I have maybe one of the best stories of the first round matchups. We have a guy who is leading the Providence Friars, and Bryce Hopkins, who was a transfer from the University of Kentucky. We're talking about a guy that has been balling for the Providence Friars. Kentucky, a team that honestly I have not loved watching them play ball. They're a team that has underperformed mightily in SEC. Obviously, that isn't as good as it's been. So, like I said, the Kentucky Invitational, losing in the semifinal is something that should never happen if you're Kentucky, right? But losing in the semifinal of the SEC championship brought me some worries. And then the fact that you have a first-round matchup against a guy that you said, you can go somewhere else. We'll let you go. Bryce Hopkins is a guy that you look to find these guys in the tournament. The Max Asmus's award, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. The Doug McDermott's of the world. The guys that you're like, this guy comes with a vengeance. This guy thinks that he knows who the hell he is, and I'm riding with Providence here and the Friars here. Weirdly enough, I think that Bryce Hopkins has a revenge game, and I think he makes this an interesting one. And honestly, there's rumors swirling around Kentucky and Calipari right now. He hasn't made it to the second weekend in a long time, in a few years. It's been a while since Kentucky has been a very, very good powerhouse team. So hot seat could be warming up a little bit in Kentucky. So give me Providence.
Well, I will say this. I think Niko, I think you mentioned a very good point. I think Cal is definitely on the hot seat. I think Cal is to furthermore. I haven't really watched a lot of Kentucky basketball this year. I know, and again, trends here. Kentucky just got beat by Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament.
Non-tournament team too.
Yeah.
Shout out Jerry Stackhouse.
And I think this is Kentucky's been up and down this year. And keep in mind, I know you're lovely about your buddy over there that just transferred from Providence, Bryce Hopkins, but they do also have Oscar Tshiebwe, who was the former Naismith Basketball Player of the Year last year. He's back. He's a double-double machine. So I think if Kentucky can get by Providence, I think Kentucky is poised for a pretty good run here. I actually have Kentucky going pretty far in this tournament. So I'm going to take again, like I said, there's a lot of cats in this East bracket, but it's going to be a Wildcat versus Wildcat in round 2 versus Kansas State versus Kentucky. Actually, Jimmy, to give you perspective, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cats in this East tournament. So a lot of cats here.
There's a lot of cats, but there's only one Raging Cajun, and they are taking on the Tennessee Volunteers. So We go from all cats to two things that have nothing to do with that. Tennessee, the 4 seed out of the SEC, Louisiana. Are they? Is it Sun Belt in basketball as well?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so out of the Sun Belt, the 13 seed. Niko mentioned, the upsets are ripe, especially when looking at some kind of deeper into the bracket. But what are we feeling? I'm going with Tennessee. Just because I really like what Louisiana has done with their football program. They've kind of turned themselves into a group of 5 power, but I really have no clue if they've done that with any of their basketball program. And I don't really want to take the shot in the dark that they have. So I'm going to go with Tennessee over the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, but I'm interested to see what you guys think about this one.
I hate betting on Tennessee. I'm going to actually go with the Raging Cajuns here. For whatever reason, Tennessee and their coach, and you might have to correct me if I'm wrong here, Niko. I forget the coach's name, but he has not had a good track record in the tournament. And I'll have to find his name here when you're speaking. But Louisiana Lafayette, I think this is one of those matchups where Tennessee has not really performed well in years past. I think they continue that trend. Even if they win against this first round, do I think they advance after that? I do not. I think this is one of those teams that's just they rely heavily on the 3 ball, and the Raging Cajun are a very good rebounding team. So I think that is something. The biggest concern is can Louisiana Lafayette convert the shots that are open for them, and can they, because they're not going to get many, and can they also convert at the free throw line? They do not shoot the ball well at the line. So that'll be the 2 indicators if you can see if Louisiana Lafayette can rebound the ball and can shoot and get easy buckets while they have the ability to. Otherwise, I think Tennessee will. And granted, don't get me wrong here. I can see why Tennessee's a nice and sexy pick. They're the number 1 defense in the nation. So I think I for that reason, I see why a lot of people pick Tennessee. I just their shooting scares me, and I've watched them blow games on their shooting.
You nailed the point on the head for me and why I'm picking Tennessee here, Jeremy. It's the number 1 net defense. When you run into a team possibly like Duke or Roberts in the second round, that's, I think, where your offense will get you in trouble. But Louisiana is a team that obviously has not played the offensive level or the defensive level of Tennessee. And it's a team that can guard everybody, that can lock down anybody they want to. And I think Louisiana is going to have some tough time getting shots off. So like I said, I don't trust Tennessee long term. But in these first round matchup, when you have the best defense in college basketball, it's hard for me to have them a round 1 exit. So I'm gonna stick with Tennessee.
I might have to switch my pick. I don't know, man. This game is, again, this East region for me is tough. So Jimmy, put me down for Louisiana.
All right, I'll have you with Louisiana. I can't change my pick, and that'll make a little bit more sense in when we talk about the next game that we're moving to. I have another 12-5 upset. I feel like if I just pick all the 12-5 upsets, then obviously I'm going to get one of them to go correctly. Oral Roberts versus Duke. I don't trust Duke. I like them better now that Coach K is not on the bench for whatever reason. I just couldn't get behind the guy unless he was coaching the U.S. Olympic team. And I remember Oral Roberts, like, obviously it's not the same team, but they have done it before. They've upset teams that nobody thought they could beat in the past. I have them winning and playing Tennessee in my round of 32. So that's why I can't switch for Louisiana. I think that a 12 versus 13 in the round of 32, ESPN executives will pull all of their hair out. I don't think that's going to happen. So, or Roberts versus Duke, I'm setting it up for you guys. Go ahead, knock it down. What are we looking for?
Yeah, for me, look, it's Max Asmus. It absolutely is. This Oral Roberts team is a team that has a lot of returners from 2 years back, right? Max Asmus obviously being the guy, and the thing you're running into is Duke is quote unquote going on under the radar, which is almost better for them. Almost very much better for them because, like I said, you fly under the radar, you win the ACC tournament, right? You fly under the radar, you're a 5 seed. When after winning a Power 5 conference, you probably should have been a top 4 seed. Right now, look, you hate being that 5-12 matchup, but Oral Roberts is playing probably any other 5 seed. I would have picked them, but this Duke team scares me to a point of where like they're under the radar. That's the whole thing I'm trying to get at right here. They're a team that has nothing to lose. John Shire's first year, it's a situation where you're like, man, it's fucking Duke, but I guess I don't hate them as much because it's not as Dukey as weird as that sound, right? It's not a Duke team of the
It is a
past.
Dookie. No,
It
are
is.
Dookie.
It is at the same time, but I'm like, this team should beat this team, right? I'm gonna take Duke here. I look, my heart will be rooting against for Oral Roberts. I never want Duke's success, but by any means. And I think Oral Roberts is one of the few teams that probably match up the worst with them. But yeah, I have to go Duke, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But I'm gonna red Duke.
This game, okay, so obviously America's pick is going to be on Oral Roberts. I think this is when they originally released the bracket on the selection show. When they released this matchup, this could have easily. First of all, this easily could have been IU at the 5 seed. By the way, it was in between IU and Duke for the 5 seed, and Duke got it. This was when I saw this, I was like, this is probably going to be I would say probably the most watched game of 2020, the first round of the 2023 March Madness tournament. Because I mean, you got a team in Oral Roberts that has the track record of beating these big boys. They beat a 2 seed in Ohio State a couple years ago. I'm Niko. I'm in agreement with you here. I think Duke wins this game. I think Jeremy Roach, who is a veteran guard for Duke, handles these two Oral Roberts guards very well. It's going to be a matter of can they get past this massive center, Connor Vanover. He's 7'5" for Oral Roberts. He's a big boy in there. Almost kind of reminds me of like a UCF game. I don't know if you can recall that game. UCF played Duke, and that was when Zion, and that game went down the wire. I think Kyle Flopowski for Duke is starting to figure it out. I think Duke is starting to figure it out. I'm not a big of a Duke hater as a lot of people are. As I know a lot of people that around the country, including people from Indiana, do not like Duke. I think Duke is a very solid team. I think they're starting to figure it out. I think they have veteran guard play. I think they have a young star in Kyle Flopowski. They also just won the ACC tournament, beating a Virginia team who can play that slow style basketball, and they've proven it because they beat them in the ACC tournament, and they also beat a very fast-paced offensive team in Miami. So I think Duke is trending in the right direction. I think Duke is a under the radar pick. I'm going with the Blue Devils.
Shit, if they won the ACC, that is a down year. That's a really down year for what they had to put out there this season.
Yep.
Memphis and FAU 8-9 matchup. The Owls versus the Tigers. If you're one of those people that do use the mascots, Owls versus Tigers, I picked the Tiger. Memphis is going to get the win over FAU, and they're going to go on and play the number 1 seed in this bracket in the next round. Because again, I don't see a play-in team is not going to upset a number 1 seed. I just don't think that's going to happen. If it does, I'll eat my hat live on the podcast if everybody subscribes and follows and likes the video and all that kind of stuff. But Memphis, to me, too much, and I really don't know anything about FAU. So, Jeremy, what are you seeing when you look at this matchup?
So I have watched both these teams play. I think I picked Memphis a little bit too early last year in the tournament, and they caught me red-handed when they got beat in the first round. If you recall, Niko, that was Amani Bates' team. I think Memphis has matured a lot this year. They have given Houston hell. Actually, to put it in perspective, they beat Houston once, and they lost on a buzzer beat to Houston. I picked Memphis to beat Purdue in round 2. They have a guard by the name of Kendrick Davis, who is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. But I'm not going to discredit FAU here. FAU won 31 games. 31. That's a lot of basketball games for them to make the tournament here. They played in a brutal conference tournament. I did watch their conference tournament. They almost lost to Middle Tennessee in that game. I think Houston's more athletic. I think they're long. Or, I'm sorry, not Houston. Memphis is long. They can get to the rim. They can shoot the ball. They're a dangerous team. I actually have them beating Purdue in round 2. So as you know, I'm rolling with Memphis. And furthermore, they have if this gives you any perspective on to Memphis, they played Houston 3 times. They're 1-2. They played Alabama. They lost by 3 at Alabama. They beat A&M and they beat Auburn. So those are those tournament teams that are very, very good. And we'll see where this game goes. Obviously, these 8-9 matchups are absolute World War III, and we'll see kind of where this lands. But I'm going with the Tigers.
Yeah, look, this Memphis team, I'm right there alongside Jeremy. I have them beating Purdue also in the next round. FAU is a very, very good ball club. You cannot doubt what they've seen or what they've done this year with 31 wins. It's a massive, massive thing for their conference and for the team. But like I said, this Memphis team I think has all the right pieces. Kendrick Davis could be one of the best point guards in the country, if not the best. And look, they haven't lost to a team not named Houston since February 4th. It has been a full calendar month since they have lost to a team other than Houston. It's been a very long time. And before that, it was January 11th against UCF. They have beat a lot of very, very solid teams and a pretty underrated conference in the American Conference. I like this Memphis team a lot. Like Jeremy said, I'm going to be writing them to beat Purdue, not because I hate Purdue like Jeremy does, but because I have a lot of trust in what Penny Hardaway has done with this team. And this is a very old team as well. You look at the ages of some of these players, 25, 26 years old. That is the average age of an all-star in the NBA currently, funny enough.
Welcome to the era of the NIL.
Yeah. Exactly. So this Memphis team is veteran and has a lot of good leaders. And you have a guard in Kendrick Davis that's leading the squad. I'm riding Memphis absolutely here.
By the way, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but breaking news, if you guys haven't, Jim Boeheim officially retired from the Syracuse Orange.
It's about 5 years too late.
Wow, yeah, no, I think that was a couple days ago. But still, longest tenured coach ever.
Yeah. No, it's
the maker of the 2-3 zone.
Yeah.
The person that wrote that into everyone's brain of what Syracuse basketball is.
Yeah.
Do you think they stick with the zone with the next coach?
Yeah, you can't go away with it. It's like the Army and the wing T. Like they're never gonna not run that. I mean, they may every now and then switch it up, but they're never. It's etched into that school's brain.
All right, now that we've gone on my little ADHD tangent there, final game in the Eastern bracket, Purdue, and they get the winner of Texas Southern, or like I said, Fairleigh Dickinson.
Fairleigh Dickinson, baby. And a back-to-back tournament team, may I remind you, they were in the tournament last year. Yeah, no, they're not beating Zach.
Why do they have a first and last name is my question. Why does the school have a first and last name?
I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. A guy who has a first and last name that neither of those two teams will be able to guard is Zach Edey.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter. Look, those poor kids that'll look like a high schooler playing on an elementary school basketball court. Neither of those two teams, I think, have anyone over 6'8", and Zach Edey is standing at 7'3", 7'4",
yep,
whatever the hell it is. So yeah, look, all you have to do is just dump it into Zach Edey. I would love to say that Purdue can get upset, but I don't think it happens until later on. This first round matchup will be a walkthrough.
They'll dump the ball in the Edey and he'll just ground and pound, and this won't even be close. Purdue will smoke them. It's round 2 that they need to get ready for because I think Memphis can beat them pretty badly with their guard play. So Purdue will never lose because of their big man. Purdue will lose because of their guard play, and obviously Indiana beat them twice this year. So I kind of know how they lose. So Purdue should smoke these guys, and then we'll see in round 2 where they're at.
Zach Edey stands at 7'4", by the way, officially. Which who knows? I don't know. Honestly, in basketball, when you're that tall, don't they try and shave a couple inches off? Because if you want to go to the NBA, nobody's other than Yao Ming. Nobody's been really successful when you're that tall. But that is just.
Big boy.
It is unnerving.
He's probably the Naismith Player of the Year too, because they're not going to give it to Brandon Miller.
He was Naismith Player of the Year.
Oh, he did?
They gave it to him. They gave it to him.
Yeah, you can't give that award to a guy who supplied the murder weapon in a homicide. What I was saying, it's unnerving when you have somebody that's that big that you see around. We have an 8th grader who's 6'9", and he legit ducks the door frames. It's like, oh, hi. You snuck up on me. I don't know how you sneak anywhere because the ground shakes when you walk, but fee, fi, fo, fum.
Yeah.
All right. That's the Eastern bracket. Before we get into, we're moving on to the Midwest. If you're following along here live, be sure to subscribe and fill out a bracket. ESPN allows you to fill out 25 brackets at total. Now, you can only put one bracket into the FEOTB group. I have the name down there. 2023 FEOTB March Madness. Join, compete against the other bench warmers, free swag, and a gift card for one of our BSN sponsors is on the line. These are really fun competitions. We obviously had our fantasy football one this season that Niko and I ended up losing in the championship. There's a lot that went on there, but Niko is the defending champion. He's talking a whole bunch of shit, so we need as many people to put in a bracket.
Like, we'll give it to second place. It's all right, man. We did it last year. Gave it to second place. I'll happily win again.
Yeah, no, that's yeah.
I for once only fill out one bracket, so that'll be pretty easy for me as far as knowing if my bracket I'll be either finishing first or last, if famous Ricky Bobby would say.
Yeah, and this year we changed it. Last year I didn't put any limits into it. We had people filling out like 50. There was 350 people in the group. I was like, what the? Wait a second. Same guy. He literally picked all of the different combinations that you could pick. That's not fair.
He still lost. So, I mean, it's cute.
He can do, and give you perspective, Jimmy, he could do a gazillion perfect brackets. You couldn't get a perfect one. That's how hard it is.
Yeah.
No, that's the reason why you fill out 20 plus brackets is to try to get one.
See, but then so then my counter to that is, so then you're gonna root against the team that you pick. So like, I guess my point is, like, for example, if like, we'll get into it, but like if Indiana was playing Kent State and I'm IU and I think Kent State's gonna win, I pick Kent State. Like, how does that work? Like, my thinking is,
I have a main bracket. I have a main bracket that I ride to. I fill out the other ones just for the hell of it, to be like, I almost got one, or this was in a 0.005 percentile. That's basically the only reason why I fill out the all 20. I have a main one. I'm not that crazy. I don't follow 15 of them, but I follow one main one and fill out others to try to get the perfect.
I struggle enough filling out the one bracket each year, but Jeremy, you haven't seen this. This is my wrestling packet. Because there's 10 weight classes. There's 5 rounds on the top side. There's 9 rounds on the bottom side. So
holy smokes.
Yeah, I filled out all 10 of those. I don't have much more space in my brain for any more bracket setups or anything like that. Moving to the Midwest. We're starting in Houston. Why not? Because it's the Midwest bracket. That doesn't make I know they don't do it based on where you're located, but that just sounds wrong with me to say. The Cougars AAC team, to my knowledge, they were number 1 for a good portion of the season, or at least a few weeks of the season. And I threw this one out there, so Jeremy, I'll impress you too. Since Phi Slamma Jamma, this might be their best team.
They did make the Final Four last year, so we'll pump the brakes here. They were dark horse last year. I had them going pretty far last year. They got a great coach. They have a really good coach. They have a really good program. They know how to. Kelvin Sampson has been unbelievable for them forever. They've had him for years. Houston has been solid. Do I think they play in the best conference? I do not. And I think the conference reflects on how good of a team they are. Do I think they beat Northern Kentucky, the Norse? Yeah, absolutely. I don't see that. I don't see the Norse. Well, great. I think by far my favorite, like logo and team mascot, the Norse. I think that's a really cool name. But I don't see Houston going down on this one, especially considering, Jimmy, that Houston, and if they win a couple games, as a Final Four in Houston. So that's another big indicator for them as far as
and this is Jim Nance's last March Madness tournament. He's a Houston grad. So if we're going to talk about cosmic karma, I feel like there's a pretty good argument to be made. By the way, I will throw out one of those stupid analytical stat nerds here. Houston has, yes, they play in a bad conference. They do have a plus 18 point differential. Like they beat the crap out of the teams that they're supposed to beat. So they're used to it. And this is just basically another conference game for them playing Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky's not going to come close to touching them. I feel like Houston's going to run them out early.
No, I think they'll run them too. The problem where we'll get with Houston, though, is that their top guy, Marcus Sasser, has been rolling with an ankle injury and has not been fully healthy. He's a guy that is this team relies on heavily. It could end up hurting them in the long run. He's playing. He'll play through the injury. You don't miss tournament. You don't miss the tournament. This ain't no I'm gonna take time off. There's no
load management.
Yeah, there's no load manager right now. There may be for the second half of this first game, but I think Houston will win this very handedly. But having Marcus Sasser banged up may hurt them for a deep run. Because like I said, you got to win. You got to win a lot of games in a row. You got to win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You win 6 games to get to a national championship. So it's a run. It's a long run. So if Houston can do it, I think they have the team. And Kelvin Sampson's done a hell of a job. But Marcus Sasser not being fully healthy does not help.
My question now that I'm thinking about it, I mentioned that the wrestlers, you go to a backside and get to continue to play. So you get like a true third, a true fourth, a true fifth. I know it might be impossible to do logistically. Would you be okay with basketball trying something like that? Where at least if you get maybe the teams that lose in the Elite Eight, they go into a mini tournament. You get more basketball that way.
Too much basketball. There's already been so much basketball.
That's so difficult.
It was a thought. Yeah, it was a thought.
It's a great idea. I mean, they've had guys one expanding to the tournament to 128 teams or whatever it is. Double.
We can't even get football to 12 yet. Basketball is going to go to 128. Yeah. Basically, the whole season's just a tournament. Forget the regular season. The whole season's a tournament.
One game elimination the whole way through.
And it's not like anybody's ever gotten a perfect bracket past like round of 32 or Sweet 16. I think was the farthest ever gotten. It's not like it's hard enough as it is. It's not like I got 4 teams. I think we can figure this out. Nope.
Yeah. Okay, moving to the next matchup here. Iowa, the 8 seed, going up against Auburn, the 9 seed. The Tigers and the Hawkeyes. Big 10 versus SEC. I did pick Auburn. I'm having Cougars versus Tigers in the second round. I don't really have a reason, but what are you guys thinking for Iowa versus Auburn in that 8-9 spot?
Go ahead, Nick.
A statistic that I thought was very, very interesting that I didn't know about this until this morning, obviously, was Fran McCaffrey, the Iowa head coach, has never been to the Sweet 16. He has been the head coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes for nearly 30-plus years. The Iowa Hawkeyes have never made it to the second weekend under his realm, which is an interesting stat. Obviously, a couple of years ago with Luka Garza, they whooped GCU in the first round, but ended up losing in the second round. That was and last year, first round exit with Keegan Murray, who was a top 5 pick. They seemed as though that they fall under pressure. They fall under pressure when it comes to bright days. Bruce Pearl and Auburn, obviously not as great as what they were last year with Jabari Smith. But like I said, they were a very good team last year. And I think they're looking for a little retribution on their early exit last year. So I'm going to go Auburn here. I trust this Auburn team a little bit more than I do Iowa. I don't know. Iowa's a team that scares you during the regular season, scares you during getting to the Big Ten championship, but they seem to fall under pressure when it gets to a neutral site game in March.
I took Auburn as well. I'm sticking away from the Big Ten again. One thing that I would like to mention, the people out there that don't know where Auburn is, it's in Alabama, and their game is being played in Birmingham, Alabama. So it'll be a home game for Auburn, which is I think a huge good indicator. And they've been and keep in mind, Auburn is a very good home crowd team. Granted, they lost to Alabama twice, but when they have their fans show up, they usually succeed. And furthermore, they're going to be playing. If they win, they play. Obviously, unless something craziness happens, they'll be playing Houston, and Houston will be an interesting matchup against Auburn. So that could potentially happen down the road. We'll see. But I'd like to remind people that Auburn was 16-3 to start the year. This is a team that has beaten a lot of good teams and has also lost to a lot of good teams. Lost to Alabama twice. They split against Tennessee. They lost to West Virginia by 3, but they've also beaten teams like Northwestern, who's a 7 seed in the tournament. They beat Arkansas, who's another 8-9 seed in the tournament. So, granted, that is the Arkansas side. The Iowa side, who is beating up on my Hoosiers big time this year, they're very streaky. If they're hot, they're real hot. They can score. Keegan Murray is an animal. He can shoot the 3. They got a lot of good 3-point shooters. They are deep. They usually roll about 7 or 8 deep, maybe even 9, depending on the opponent. And also, the Hawkeyes have one of the best offenses in the country. So if Iowa gets it going early, it could be an ugly day for Auburn. But if Auburn can maintain the storm of Iowa, I think they pull this one out at being at home.
Over 6 rounds of basketball, there's going to be times where you give up big runs. It's can you come back from giving up the big run? If you get a team that goes on 20-2, call the timeout. Let's get ourselves back focused because obviously somebody's not doing something right. It also, like, as somebody who started coaching now and thinking back, like all the stories that I hear from, my dad, my former coaches, like in the heat of the moment, it's very difficult to change something that you've done all season. So if something isn't working and it's not going well, it's going to come down to the coaches, like making that adjustment where you go, really? Well, I guess that was the right decision. So coaching will play a big part, just like I talked about the officiating. Next game here, number 5 Miami going up against 12-seeded Drake. So
does your dad have trust in your, does your dad have trust in your basketball team like he doesn't have trust in his football team, or what? Because
this is a really intriguing matchup. I think this one is. I had a tough time picking this one. There are some others that were pretty straightforward for me, just kind of how team styles and how they play. Drake and Miami can both score the damn ball. I mean, Drake blew the doors off of Bradley in their conference tournament championship game. Miami has been one of those teams that has been up and down. They have an injury to one of their key guys. I think one of the stars, I forget his name. I'll have to look that one up. But Isaiah Wong is their lead guy. Miami's got veteran guard play, and they're returning again from last year when they made an Elite 8 run. So if that gives you any indication on how good Miami could be, it's a matter of can they get up and out against Drake, because Drake is a type of team that can score in volume. They can go on a 10-12-0 run in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes. So they're very good. Drake shoots the ball at a high percentage. With a couple guys shooting almost 40% from 3, which is very impressive. And they have a nearly 3-to-1 assist turnover ratio. So I'm sticking with the family here. I'm taking Miami. This is one of those games, Jimmy, that you like to talk about, those 5-12 matchups. They are always so difficult to pick. And again, another coin toss game. So I'm picking the U.
Is it Norshid Omeyer, by the way, just before Nico gets in there? Is that the player that you were talking about that's injured?
Yes, yeah, that's him. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna ride the other side. I'm gonna go Drake here. There's stories you hear out of college basketball, and look, I don't know much about Drake basketball, but I know, look, they have a father-son coach player duo, something similar we've seen with success with mid-major schools. You think of the Doug McDermott's at the time. You think of the R.J. Hunters and of the world, and his dad. Tucker DeVries and I believe it's Darian DeVries, both father-son duo out of Drake. And I think we could see another one shining quote-unquote moment here. I think Miami had a lot of hype going into the ACC tournament. I believe they were a 1 seed. Maybe they were a 2 seed.
They were the 1 seed.
They were the 1 seed going into that tournament. And they look, Duke came in, and I think they rolled them. Right? Like, this is a team that is not playing very, very good at the right time. And Jeremy said it best. Drake dominated their conference. They came in and beat everybody of who's who. So I'll go with the 5-12 here. I'll take the bait, the weird bait, and I'll take Drake here.
Everybody's going to pick one.
No, I mean, this is a coin toss matchup, man. This is a coin toss matchup. So yeah, we'll see.
All right. Jeremy, I know you're excited to talk about the next game that's up here. It is your Hoosiers going up against Kent State and the Golden Eagles. So I guess we should just give the floor over to you because there's not going to be anybody who's watched more Indiana basketball that we could have brought on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you guys know, I'm a big IU fan. So we've had a very up and down year. We've had some great moments, beating Purdue. We've also gotten our brains beat in by Arizona and Kansas. So it's been a great year. We have one of the best players in the country, Trace Jackson Davis. He's by far one of the best. I think it's going to be a matter of this game I have not watched a lot of Kent State. They have a track record of playing a lot of good teams. I know from obviously the Twitter sphere and Indiana basketball fan base that this is a matchup that not a lot of fans are looking forward to. But again, I think when Indiana has gotten beat, when they got beat by Penn State, I think they should have won that game. That was a terrible game from them. I think they usually, when they get beat, they usually rebound nicely. And granted that they're a 4 seed this year, they had a better taste in their mouth with getting blown out by St. Mary's last year in the tournament. I think we'll be ready to go, ready to play. Big Ten Freshman of the Year, Jalen Hood-Schifino, our point guard, absolute beast. I can't pick against my Hoosiers, so I'm going with IU. But again, this is a type of game where I don't even want to say it, but I could see it happening, where Kent State could come in and if we have an off shooting night, definitely beat us. But I don't think, from my perspective, I don't think anybody's going to stop Trace. So I'm going with the Hoosiers.
I don't think anyone can stop Trace. I think you hit the nail on the head. Kent State is a sneaky good team, though. I'll tell you that. So if you're looking to bet the game, I would take this. I would take the cover, if I'm being honest with you. But I think Indiana does win. I think they have a lot of great pieces. What I've been saying all year, though, with this Indiana team, Jeremy, and I've been telling you this team is the most inconsistent team in college basketball. They could be one of the best teams in the country, or they could be middle of the pack. And it's plain and simple. Who the hell is going to show up? And I think against Kent State, they could beat them. I think when you get to a possible Sweet 16 matchup against Houston, then we'll really see what this team is made of. But I can't disagree with you here. I think they beat Kent State, and I'm going to go Indiana.
Yeah, I think, and also furthermore, I know a lot of people have been. This is the Kent State upset. I think one of the things that I like to always think about, and when the bracket initially comes out, is who people are hot on to upset. The Oral Roberts, the Kent States. These are the teams that are going to upset, and usually it doesn't happen. It's usually the teams out of nowhere that you're like, who? The Georgia States, the St. Peter's, the VCUs, the George Masons, that you have no idea. Those are the type of teams that come out. So I think Kent State being a very sexy pick is almost kind of what IU was with Duke, where everybody's saying, oh, that's a bad matchup for IU, blah, blah, blah. I think IU wins this game. I think IU is in a lot of trouble in the next round.
The reports that I've heard, the Indiana coach brought the team to the arena. He had the guy get on the other guy's shoulders. They're measuring out from the floor to the rim. It's still 10 feet. They still play on the same dimensions. Gene Hackman's got those boys rolling.
That's an unbelievable movie, and I've been to that arena that's actually where Butler plays. And Jimmy and Niko, if you're ever in Indiana and want to catch a Butler game, that arena is special. It's a special place. So Gene Hackman says it best. The floor is still 94 feet, and the rim is still 10 feet tall the last time I checked.
Yep. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I have Indiana losing in the second round. I do have them beating Kent State, but I do have Miami. Your dad gets bragging rights for the year. I don't know what else to tell you. Iowa State taking on the winner of Mississippi State or Pitt. This is Niko explained it to me as like I was a fifth grader before we started going. They were two of the last four teams in, so they have to play each other for the right to make the bracket, and then they'll be playing Iowa State. First off, who is winning this game? I want your quick predictions. Mississippi State or Pitt? Who makes the bracket and gets the chance to play Iowa State as the 11th seed?
I'm going to go Mississippi State. Pitt's a great story. They were one of the worst teams in college basketball a couple years ago. They I kid you not, were the biggest pushover in the ACC. So that's a great story what that program's turned into. But Mississippi State's a much better team. I think they have great guard play. And I think great guard play can win you these quote unquote first round matchup. And I think they're just more ready for the big time than Pitt is.
A couple things here. We'll get into what I think about this potential matchup between Iowa State and the winner of this game. But I think Mississippi State is a hot team. Buzz Williams is a really good coach. He has been all over the place. I think Pitt had a great season. They almost won the ACC. That ACC game against Miami was literally the decision. I think Mississippi State has played in a tougher conference this year. I think, again, Mississippi State is going to be one of those teams that will be ready to go fired up. Obviously.
Quick turnaround, too, with those first four.
Yep. So I think, and we'll get into this here in a minute, but Mississippi State and this Pitt matchup, this first four games, usually a winner of this game usually ends up beating a team that hasn't played yet, like an Iowa State. Not like Iowa State, for example, but a team that's played.
Yeah,
And you correct me if I'm wrong here. A couple years ago, UCLA was a 11 seed. They played in the first four and ended up going all the way up to the Final Four. So.
Yeah, we had Syracuse a couple years back as well. Went from 11 to a final, Elite Eight too. So it's not unheard of for one of these first four teams to win the next round. And that'll segue into this. I'm taking Mississippi State / Pittsburgh over Iowa State. Iowa State's a team that I'm not in love with. I watched this team in the Big 12 tournament. And I was not impressed. I was not impressed at all, and I think that because they're middle of the pack in a good conference, I think they may think that they're better than where they are. And I think a hungry team that's playing the first four wants it more. It takes down Iowa State.
All right, Jeremy, what do you think? Are you picking against Iowa State as well? Are you more into the Cyclones?
Iowa State's one of those teams I think that depending on the matchup is really a good indicator. I think their guards are very good on the defensive side for Iowa State. They're really good at forcing turnovers and crashing the boards, but they struggle to make shots from the three. So I think when you look at a team that is all well-rounded, these defensive teams are so tough to pick because you have a team like Virginia who won the whole thing a couple years ago who had an unbelievable defense. And then you look at a team in years past, for example, like we just talked about earlier, Tennessee, who's really good defense, but boy, they struggle shooting that ball sometimes. I don't care how good of a defense you have. Teams you got to make shots. Unfortunately, you have to make shots in the tournament. It's not like the NBA where, defense you can take over, everybody can make shots. March Madness, you got to make shots. And the NBA, you got to see, obviously, how many stops you can get because it's all offense. But that's a conversation for another time. I'm rolling with the winner of this game, potentially Mississippi State, advancing past Iowa State into the round of 32.
I was not expecting to be the only one on the team that's actually in the bracket. It makes sense what you guys are saying, like getting a tune-up game, especially if your team is geared for it. Like if it was a Cinderella story that made the play-in game, that's a different topic. But if it is a Mississippi State that should be technically, maybe they had a bad conference tournament and that's why they're in this spot. Getting a tune-up game does not hurt moving into a situation where you got to win 6. It's 6 most important games of your life, not like LeBron, not like the 23 most important games that you're ever going to play in your life. These are the 6 most important games. Sometimes you don't make it back to the tournament.
Yeah, so, and also one other thing that I hate to bring up my Hoosiers again, but it actually relates. This first 4 games can be an absolute detrimental to your team. And I'll say this, for example, Indiana was in the first 4 last year. They ended up beating Wyoming. They had to travel all the way out to Portland, Oregon to play St. Mary's. They got their doors blown off them by 30. So it can be a saving grace, or it can be a really bad situation where you're on a short turnaround, flying across the country or wherever, and you get the doors blown off and your season's over. You're like, wait a second, we just played a game 2 days ago. So it's a slippery slope, right? But we've seen our track record, like Nico said, Syracuse, UCLA, they've made runs. So could be a potential team that makes a run.
All right, let's go back to the Big East. Number 3, Xavier, taking on number 14, Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State, obviously more of a Cinderella type story. Haven't necessarily, I'm sure that they've made the tournament in the past. We'll talk about in our next bracket, we'll talk about probably one of the bigger droughts from being on the bracket. But this is a spot where, Xavier does play basketball. They play basketball very well. And this year they were in a very good conference. So for those reasons, I picked Xavier to beat Kennesaw State. I don't see a 14-3 upset happening in this region. I think Xavier takes it and moves forward to, I guess in my scenario, they're going to go beat Iowa State in my round of 32 is what I have. What are you guys thinking? Jeremy, what do you think?
Oh, I was going to say, I'll let Nico go first. I know Nico is probably – I think he's pretty high on Xavier on this one, right, Nico?
Yeah, Sean Miller is a great tournament coach. He knows what it takes to get to that second weekend, and he's done that. He did that in the past with a lot of good Arizona teams. So like I said, I think he has Xavier moving on. Kennesaw State, I'm not high on them at all. I think they're a tournament team that obviously snuck in because of the conference championship, which there's nothing against that at all. But Xavier is a much more tested team. And yes, they got their shit broken by Marquette in the Big East championship, but they beat some very, very good teams on the road to get there. And I think that Sean Miller has a lot of great got a lot of great abilities and getting his boys ready for that first weekend and getting to the second weekend.
This is a really interesting matchup. On paper, you're like, this is Xavier all the way, no problem. And the reason why I say this is because I'm familiar with both teams. Indiana's actually played both these teams. Kennesaw State was tied with Indiana half at Indiana. And I remember watching that game, and I was like, God bless. This team's pesky. At the time, obviously, it's December when I didn't think that they were going to be in the tournament by any means. But, man, if Kennesaw State can force some turnovers, and they are really good at the free throw line, they can get Xavier in foul trouble. This could be. I see where everybody's on Xavier. I get it. I see where everybody's on Xavier. They're playing the Big East. They've played plenty of teams that have a good track record. And they played Indiana's also. We beat them. But I will say this: I originally went with Xavier. I'm going to stick with Xavier with the safe pick. But this is of the 3 of 14 games. This is the game where I can see a potential upset. I think Kennesaw State's going to come in loose. I think they're going to come in hot. I think they're a team that's going to be with nothing to lose. And I think this is going to be a Xavier team that doesn't overlook, but potentially could be in a dogfight at the end.
I'll tell you right now, it's not the 14-3 upset that'll happen.
I'm telling you, bud, you better watch it. I'm telling you, Kennesaw State is pesky. They're long. They're athletic. If they can get to the line and get free throws, they'll be in the game. If they won't, they'll get blown out. But Xavier is one of those teams, man. Those Big East teams are hit or miss. Like you said, is it the Xavier team that showed up in the Big East tournament championship game, Nico? Or is it the Xavier team we've seen in the past? I don't know. Very inconsistent. I'm willing to put some money on that, by the way, Nico.
No. I said it will. There will be a different 14-3 upset.
Oh, okay.
There'll be a different one. Don't worry. So
all right.
We'll get to that here in a minute.
Oh, right. No, I get what you're saying.
It's not the one that will be the main one that people are talking about. That's all I'm going to say.
I thought you were giving me props for my Montana State, Kansas State pick, Nico. That's what I thought you were doing. I'm going to go – I'll give my prediction first for the next one. I picked Penn State over Texas A&M because if Penn State does not make it out of this first round, nobody will watch them lose because they are the wrestling team in the country. I guarantee you everyone who's a Penn State athletics fan is going to be watching the wrestling tournament over the basketball game that they could possibly get beaten and beaten up. Like they want to see their school win and have some pride. I don't necessarily think that they would want to go and watch Texas A&M beat them. That being said, I think that gives them a chip on their shoulder. Let's make it to the second round. Let's see what we can do against Texas. I'm picking the Nittany Lions to move on, and Texas A&M goes home early.
As much as Penn State's a wrestling school, both these teams lost in the conference championships. Penn State lost to Purdue in the Big Ten championship.
I did see that. Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Enough, and Texas A&M obviously lost to Bama. But look, I'm gonna ride A&M here. I think A&M is really, really fast paced. And I think they're gonna play at their tempo. I think, like I said, they have two of the best guards in the country, and I think they're a team that can run up and down on teams. And I think Penn State. Like I said, Penn State lost to some teams that play a slow pace, like Zach Edey and company, and with Purdue. And I think if Texas A&M gets to the hot pace and gets rolling, I think they're a team that's looking forward to the next round, where you possibly get a Texas versus Texas matchup, an SEC battle, quote unquote, in 2 years, a former Big 12 battle. I think maybe that could be a cause for concern because that's something where they could be looking ahead and that could end up biting them in the ass. But as of right now, I think that they're too much determined, and I think that they're going to beat Penn State.
I think one of the things, and I mentioned this earlier, I was high on Creighton. I was high on Baylor this year going into the tournament. I was also high on A&M, and I was also high on Penn State. Both these teams are really good as far as shooting the rock. It's going to be who's going to miss first. If you look at Penn State's shot chart, they are literally this is the only team that shoots threes. And if they can make threes, they'll win. If they miss threes, I think A&M will blow them out of the gym. I picked A&M here. I think this is Penn State's the type of team, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that almost reminds me of an Iowa team of last year. Iowa was extremely hot in the Big Ten tournament, just was making everything, ended up winning the Big Ten tournament over Purdue, and then they got beat in the first round when nobody expected it. And it's because they rely heavily on the three ball. And I think one of the things that this tournament brings out is who are the most complete teams and who are the teams that kind of rely on that one aspect of their game to get to to win. And Penn State is the three ball. So I'm not so high on Penn State this year, as far as I think they got too hot too early. And I think that A&M will be able to rebound them because Penn State plays that small ball 5 lineup that actually beat Indiana's up pretty badly. So I think they have veteran guards. Dexter Dennis is a beast. He will be able to guard a little bit of Jaden Pickett, who is or Jalen Pickett, I should say, who is arguably one of the best scorers in the country. So I'm rolling with the Aggies, and I'm excited to see an Aggies versus Longhorns matchup in round 2.
All right, now we're moving to the last matchup in the Midwest bracket, Texas versus Colgate. Not the toothpaste, Colgate University, and the Longhorns I picked Texas. I've seen Colgate play football 2 years ago against Air Force, not seen them play basketball ever in my life. Didn't even know that they had a basketball program.
Yeah, look, this Texas team, obviously one of the best teams in the country at the beginning of the year. They were a red hot start, and then everything with Chris Beard goes down, right? They have the Chris Beard arrest, and they release him from the team. They bring in Rodney Terry, who's the assistant coach, which the team loves. And the team obviously took some stumbles, but this is a team at the beginning of the year. They were like, everyone's like, yeah, this is a top 5 team in the country. This is a team that can make a very, very good run. At a lot of good teams. It's got a lot of good depth, and Rodney Terry has done a hell of a job with this team. What worries me is obviously at some point, like the coaching factor will come into play. It's the old factor of Bill Self versus not Bill Self, and Coach K versus not Coach K. It's like he's been there. He's been under the bright lights, right? Chris Beard has won some big games. Rodney Terry has not done that. He's won the Big 12 championship on Saturday night, which is massive win against Kansas. But at the same time, when you get to these tense moments in March, will he fold under pressure? I don't think he does in the first round, but this Texas team could be a team that could be a Final Four bust team. Absolutely.
I'm very high on Texas this year. I think they fell a little short in as far as the regular season is concerned. I think they were right there with Kansas, and then I finally think they figured it out in the Big 12 tournament. I think they finally got it together. The one thing that scares me with this matchup, I have Texas in my Final Four, by the way, that I have them. I think this is their year. I think all the adversity they went through, I think they finally figured it out. I think this is where they roll. Colgate's the best 3-point shooting team in the country. They shoot the ball at 41%, and all their starters average double-digit points. Granted, they play in a conference that obviously is in the Big 12, but please, God, if this were to happen where Colgate gets extremely hot from 3 and just can't miss, I'm going to be really upset. So I'm praying that Texas wins this game, but there's the outside chance that a Colgate team that went 17-1 in the conference and is obviously a red-hot shooting 3-point team, playing loose, playing with nothing to lose, playing in a game where they have no chance of winning. And next thing you know, they're 6 from 9 to 3 in the first half, and they're up 2 points, and you're like, okay, what's going on? So rolling with the Longhorns, but watch out for Colgate because they're not St. Peter's, but they can make some noise.
People forget Colgate was a team last year. I believe it was either the 14-3 or 13-4 matchup that everyone hammered them. I forgot who they played in the first round. It might have been Baylor or something along those lines.
I think it was Baylor.
Where everyone was like, Baylor's going to have a down year after winning it all, and they lost a lot of players, and then Baylor came out and smacked them. Everyone's like, there's our upset, and they came out and laid an egg. Obviously, you would love to see something different and see the Longhorns go down, but I'm hoping for the best. I may have Texas in a couple of my Final Fours too. So,
yeah.
I just recently saw that Chris Beard case. Oh my God.
That's another.
He just got hired, by the way. Yeah, he just got hired.
Yeah, no, that was the first story that popped up, and then I read the second story, and it's like, yeah, accused of strangling his fiance, but could not be proven beyond reasonable doubt.
Yeah, not a good situation.
It was a guy that Texas stole from Texas Tech too. He was the coach of that. I think it was late 8, maybe it was Final Four Texas Tech team, and he leaves to go to Texas, and then everything all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, no, not a good situation there as well. So I'm glad for Texas kind of going through some adversity this year and seeing if they can prove it this year in the tournament.
All right, we're at the last quadrant. We are going to make our Final Four predictions and national champion predictions as well. This is the quadrant that everybody's been waiting for, especially if you're, well, I know one person on this panel. He's already brought that game up once. Let's just go right to it so that you have as much time as you need to talk about them. You're shit talking your dog. We have reduced ourselves to shit talking our dogs. The GCU Lopes going up against the Gonzaga Bulldogs in the first round. This is your 14-3 upset. We know. We all know.
Look, I will be in attendance at the game. Obviously, I'm a homer. I will be rooting on my team. I'm going to be picking my team. Like I'm not going to root against them. I picked against them, and when they lost to Iowa the first time they ever made the tournament, that was a bubble. That was the bubble in Indiana. I who could care less about this? Now they're actually in the tournament where the Havocs can be there, where you have one of the hottest shooting teams in college basketball right now coming into the tournament. Well, Lopes made 11 threes in the first half in their semifinal versus Sam Houston. 11 threes alone. You have guys like Ray Harrison, who, coming from Presbyterian College, is a guy that is an absolute animal. He has been the leading scorer for the Lopes. Dropped 30 points in the WAC final against Southern Utah. He's a guy who has tournament experience very briefly in Presbyterian, but is an animal. When you look at the rest of this team, Gabe McLaughlin, a guy who's a redshirt, I believe, junior. He's one of the guys that can size up with Drew Timme. There's not many. There's not many by any means. But when you look at what GCU can do size, they have this big guy in the middle from France. I don't know his name. I can't pronounce his name, and I'm not going to try to. But the GCU Lopes lost their preseason WAC Player of the Year in Javon Blackshear at the beginning of the year, week 2. And here you are, you're dancing, right? You're dancing. You're playing in a game technically closer to your home state than the team you're playing against in Gonzaga. Gonzaga is a team that's obviously not been as good as the years past with Jalen Suggs of the world, but you still have Drew Timme over there, and they don't have Corey Kispert anymore. But this Gonzaga team is still a who's who of college basketball. But like I said, I'm picking my boys. I will pick my boys. If you're looking for a team to come out of the blue, it may as well be GCU, because plain and simple, Gonzaga during the regular season, one of the worst defensive teams in college basketball. Plain and simple. Obviously, their WCC tournament, they're a much better defensive team. But if you let GCU knock down threes and get hot, that's all I'm going to say. Look, to knock off these Giants, you have to be able to hit threes. And GCU right now is the hottest 3-point shooting team coming off their tournament championship. And they got the dogs to shoot threes, knock down. It's a question whether you can hit them, because they tried to do that against Iowa a couple years back. And that didn't work out too well because they did not have the shooters they do now. But you have shot creators and Ray Harrison and Kobe Knox. But like I said, I have faith in this team, weirdly enough. Do I think that they're going to go on this long run? Probably not. But I'd love to see them win a tournament game in my home state. So I will be riding the Lopes.
It's going to be a great game to watch, Nico. I was excited when this draw came out, especially here in Denver.
You need to watch the Havocs in person, Jeremy. I know. Finally, get to see the best student section in college basketball.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I will say. I was happy. First of all, I was happy you guys got in. I watched the end of that game, obviously the late night game out west. So that was great to watch. And it was great to see. Obviously, I was really excited for you guys. GCU came in. Do I think GCU is going to be Gonzaga? Hell no. But hey, you know what? That's why they play the games, right? I don't think Drew Timme's going to let these Havocs per se come out and shoot all these threes and beat them. I think Gonzaga's good. I think Gonzaga could potentially, depending on how this seeding comes out, make a run. But that being said, if you're right, Nico, if Gonzaga is kind of not overlooking this game, but not up to fired up, ready to play, and GCU comes out and knocks in, if it's 11 threes, watch out. But if they knock in a couple threes and get a couple stops, you just never know. So
you just got to make some noise if it elopes, right? Gonzaga sees their bracket and they see a pathway to the Final Four, right? You play UCLA. You play UCLA if you get past TCU or insert whoever they play there. You probably get to play UCLA again, which you beat them on the half court buzzer beater 2 years ago. Then you face a Kansas team that people are weary about going back to back. So there's a pathway, and an under. A less scrutinized Gonzaga team is usually better for them.
I agree. That I do agree with.
A Gonzaga team that no one's talking about usually bodes better. People are talking about them. That means they're probably going to lose in the first or second weekend. But people aren't talking about this team, and that may be the major factor in helping them.
Completely agree, Nico. Completely agree. I'm going to be that Gonzaga Grand Canyon game. Let me see before we move on here. Okay, so that is the final game of the Denver.
No, it's the second to last. We're the 5:30.
It's the second to last.
The last one is the TCU one.
It is okay. Okay. Boy, that's going to be the first session of game. Wow, that's going to be. People are going to be on Friday night happy hour getting ready for a potential upset. So, boy, that'll be I can't wait to watch that one. That'll be. If GCU pulls the upset, that's going to be.
I want to tell you right now, if they pull the upset, you probably won't hear the end of it. If Indiana loses first round, and GCU wins the first round, you might as well leave all of our group chats. Is all I'm going to say. Because Jonah and I will go at you.
Well, it's funny enough. GCU is at that 5:30 slot, and then Indiana plays like right after it. So it's you'll see. Well, we'll be at the arena. I'll be having the IU game on, so it could be a great night for both of us.
We could be jabbing a few brewskis on St. Patty's Day and Joel and I, or it could be absolutely brutal.
Yeah, that's for sure. But excited for that game, never to say the least.
Speaking of the other GCU alum that we know of that was on our show last year, Jonah, he's still got some confidence in his picks. You guys probably haven't seen what his bracket name is. He named his bracket the answer key.
He does that every year, and he's.
I know.
That's the only problem.
I talked to him yesterday, and he was studying his bracket because he's on spring break. So what else he got to do?
Jonah's probably the most pessimistic fan I know. I love Jonah to death, but my God, he thought we were losing in the first round to UTRGV, and I didn't think we'd lose that bad.
HIJK-LMNOP?
Exactly.
Who? Exactly.
He look, I like to think glass half full. I think that we have a chance when we probably don't. But screw it. I want to have some hope, all right?
Yeah. No, it'll be a great game. It'll be I'm very jealous. I was wishing IU was playing here, Nico, but I'm happy when I saw that come out. Happy your Lopes are in town.
All right, let's talk about this number one seed in this tournament because they have the longest or one of the longer droughts since being in the tournament, staring them down in the face. Howard makes the NCAA tournament for the first time in 31 years, and Kansas now is looking to start their mission to go back-to-back. First team to go back-to-back since the 80s, I want to say. That was the last time that somebody –
might be Florida.
Florida? Okay.
Floyd Brewer, Al Horford, Joakim Noah, and that little twat. Yeah.
If you guys have been listening to me at all, then you're just stupid. If I was the one that you were following to fill your bracket out. Yeah. But Kansas is looking to be that next team. They seem like they have one of the better draws out of any of the brackets. What are you guys thinking?
I think this is the toughest region. I think there's 4
Is that teams. Because you have a team in it?
No, not necessarily. Well, yeah, that, and also that I think there's 4 teams that can all make the Final Four. I think the top 4 seeds all have a conversation of being there, and then you have the St. Mary's of the world, which we'll get to. And like I said, there's 4 teams that could all make a championship run here. And Kansas, which Kansas lost a lot of pieces. Obviously, you lose Christian Brown, you lose Ochai Agbaji, Player of the Year last year, and this team may be better, right? You have Jalen Smith, who's Big 12 Player of the Year.
Jalen
Wilson. Or Jalen Wilson, sorry. Jalen Wilson, one of the best players in the country. You have Grady Dick, one of the best college basketball names you will ever see. If the guy played for Duke, the whole world will hate him and know his name by now. But because he's Kansas, he flies under the radar. I think this Kansas team is very, very good. Absolutely very good. I don't think they have any problems this first round matchup.
I don't see Howard being Kansas. I think it's just a great story. Howard is going to be there. 31 years. I mean, that is a huge accomplishment. Kansas, they should roll. A lot of the bracketologists were saying this next matchup, and that's round of 32 teams between Arkansas and Illinois, could potentially be a cause of disconcern or concern for Kansas. I don't see these guys losing very much. I think the 3 seed is a interesting 3 seed, but I don't necessarily think they have all the guns to beat Kansas. I think their biggest opponent here is going to be, unlike a Purdue in the Purdue bracket or even in in the Alabama bracket. I think UCLA here is the team to beat, to be honest. The way they played and obviously the way they lost to Arizona, but we'll get into that in a minute. But I think Kansas rolls pretty easily into the Sweet 16, and then we'll see who they play once they get there. But they definitely were, and Jimmy, they were the 4th number 1 seed. They got the short end of the stick. Maybe Purdue was a 4 seed, but I will say that is a very frustrating as a Kansas fan. I know a couple Kansas fans. They have, if they advance through the first 2 games, they actually have to fly out to Vegas
for playing Kansas City, which is
So that was the issue that they were talking about on TV. So I know that'll be a cause of concern. But Kansas
that's bulletin board material as far as I'm concerned for Bill Self. He's like, no one fucking respects you. You won the national championship. You have a lot of guys returning, and the NCAA is doing this to you. So we'll prove them wrong.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I don't see Kansas losing these first 2 games, but definitely an intriguing matchup in round 2 between the next opponent here.
Yeah, I have Illinois beating Kansas in the round of 32, which means that I have Illinois beating Arkansas in the first round. Why not? Why not? I just feel like, it could happen. Anything can happen once you get the games going. Let's quickly touch on what's the next game, because we are kind of running up against time. We told people that we wouldn't be here for 3 hours if we continue to go. It's been great, but if we continue to break down everything the way that we have, we're going to be here forever. What's the next game that we want to make sure that we talk about? Is it the UCLA? Is it the UCLA UNC Asheville game that we want to focus on, or is it one of these, maybe the 10-7, the 8-9, the 5-12? Because VCU has been one of those Cinderella teams that's made a run. What's the last game before we get into our Final Four predictions that we're really going to focus and break down?
I think UCLA runs. I think Northwestern Boise State's an interesting game. I'm not in love with either of those 2 teams, and I think UCLA can trounce both of them. TCU, that's an interesting team as well. I don't know how I feel about them. That's another team that's going to have to face a team that's coming off first 4 in ASU or Nevada. More than likely to be ASU winning. St. Mary's, honestly, that VCU matchup on paper looks interesting, but St. Mary's has been a very, very good team all year, and VCU not as good as it once was. UConn is a team that I think can make a lot of noise. Here's the common theme for Nico Bryant's bracket, ladies and gentlemen. The Big East is pretty good. I think this UConn team could give Kansas a lot of trouble. And they're facing Iona and Rick Pitino, who looks like he's already 1 foot outdoor to St. John's to another Big East school. So I think that's a very, very interesting matchup. But I think Arkansas-Illinois is going to be a very, 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 very good game. I think it's going to be one of the best games the first round, because Arkansas has a long storied tradition of winning good games in March, and Illinois has not had the recent success this year at all, or the past couple of years after being a number 1 seed in 2021, I believe, and going forward. I think that they're a team that people are overlooking because of their recent non-success.
Yeah, I'm going to back up Nico here. I think there's a lot of intriguing matchups in this in this sector. I think one of the things that obviously we'll have to figure out as we move forward here is who's going to challenge UCLA. Is it going to be Kansas? Is it going to be a UConn? UConn has not done well in the tournament. They haven't made out of the first. I believe. And correct me if I'm wrong here. I believe they haven't made out of the first weekend in quite some time. UConn Iona is an interesting matchup. That's the matchup I really want to see. If all the noise about Rick Pitino leaving to go to St. John's wasn't a thing, I had Iona upsetting UConn. I don't know. A lot of outside locker room noise. You got a UConn team that's going to be focused, ready to go, especially after they got beat in the Big East tournament. I kind of like UConn. I think everybody's on that darling VCU pick. I think St. Mary's is just a very, very, very well-disciplined team. VCU turns over the ball a ton. I don't think I think it's a no-brainer for St. Mary's to roll through on that side. Northwestern has veteran guards. Northwestern is a very good team. They have length. I've watched them this year. They have two guards, Chase Audige and Boo Buie, who Boo Buie was a Big Ten first team All Big Ten this year. Chase Audige, defensive player of the year, one of the defensive players of the year in the Big Ten. I think they beat Boise State. Do I think they beat UCLA? No. I think UCLA will dominate them down low. I think UCLA Tiger Campbell has a very good matchup against Boo Buie and Chase Audige. That'll be a very, very good matchups in the round of 32 and moving forward. Arkansas, Illinois. Arkansas is Eric Musselman, very good player. The importer, they call him. He gets transfers from everywhere. Illinois, I told you guys at the beginning of the show, I'll tell you at the end of the show, I'm staying away from the Big Ten this year, and I'm staying away from Illinois. I think Arkansas potentially gets some matchup issues for Kansas in the second round, but I think Kansas will be focused, ready to go. I think you'll see a Kansas versus UCLA Elite Eight game moving forward.
Half the time, I feel like you guys are trying to pop me with these names, like Boo Buie. That can't be real. Come on now,
Grady Dick. Yeah, I mean we could go down the list.
I'm not falling for that one, Nico. You're not going to get me to say that. On
Jimmy, how do you
Tiger Campbell?
Yeah, Jimmy, how do you think you spell Max Asmus? I'm gonna tell you right now, you're probably not gonna get it.
ACEMUS.
Already wrong. It's ABMAS.
AB?
B as in boy, yes. ABMAS.
Can you use this in a sentence, please?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. All right. Is there anything else that we want to mention? Obviously, first weekend there should be a holiday or at least a rule, like you shouldn't schedule your employees to work that Wednesday or Thursday and Friday because nothing gets done. I'm glad that we have our spring break because I was telling Nico, like, the World Cup killed my class. All my kids were just watching the World Cup every single day. If we were in class during this first 2 days of the tournament, I feel like it'd be a similar situation. But anything else before we get into our Final Four predictions and our national champion here?
I would like to propose to the United States government that there should be 3 added holidays to the calendar. Monday after the Super Bowl is one. The second one is Thursday of March Madness, and the third is Friday of March Madness. So
I am completely with that.
So that'll be my take, Jimmy. Please add some more holidays for not Madness, March Madness.
It's most of the time it works out that it would be both, but if they want it, let's throw in 4. How about that? Friday of the match. That Friday, it always has to work out that the wrestling tournament is also then, so that I could be happy as well. Nico, any other thoughts before we move to the Final Four?
I think, like I said, we'll get to our Final Four picks here in a second. There's 10 teams I could see winning this. I'm serious. There's a lot of different pathways I see here for a lot of different teams that makes it just the most unweary bracket challenge I've ever seen in my life. Last year I had a feeling with Kansas. This year I'm struggling. I struggled finding where my national champion is going to come from. I really did.
Well, that's a good segue. It is time. Final Four predictions. These are probably going to be a little bit out there, especially for myself. We'll see. But my Final Four, the Southeast, the South/East, I have Arizona and Marquette. The Midwest/West, I have Houston versus UCLA. Again, I can't pick anybody other than Marquette to be here, so I'm not blinking. This is me saying that I am picking Marquette to be in the Final Four, and I have them losing to Arizona, unfortunately, and then I have Houston beating UCLA in the other matchup. So
that's fair. I have a completely different Final Four.
Go ahead,
great.
Nick.
So yeah, I know it's wild, right? So my South, I have Bama. I think Bama's the best, one of the best, most talented team, and if they get this far, then I think that they're one of the hottest teams in basketball. And as much as I don't want to bet against Brandon Miller, I'm picking Bama in the Final Four, and I don't want to see it. I really don't, but I'm picking them. In the East region, here's my little flyer pick. I'm picking Memphis. I'm picking Penny Hardaway, Kendrick Davis to go on a little bit of run into the Final Four. I have them beating Purdue. I have them knocking off Tennessee, and I have them beating Kentucky. I think that this Memphis team, like we talked about earlier, is a very, very veteran team. And I think they're poised for a Final Four run. Do I think that they're a big time national title contender? Time will tell. But I like Memphis's team a lot, and I think they're ready. I really think that these guys have the swagger that's ready to go. On my Midwest region, Jeremy, I had your Hoosiers in my Elite Eight, but I have them losing to Texas. I have them losing to Texas. I have Texas in my Final Four, beating Indiana. Like I said, Jeremy and I both said I think Ronnie Terry have those boys ready to roll. And then my West, I have Kansas beating UCLA. So I have Kansas in my Final Four, my national champions from last year. I think that they're still one of the most talented teams in the country. My final, that means I will be rolling with Bama versus the Jayhawks. I think that these are two teams that I think Kansas is overlooked, and I think that Texas right now, it's very hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. It's very, very different, especially Bill Self in the tournament. Texas beat them last game of the year, and then obviously beat them in the Big 12 championship. I think Kansas gets the upper hand and gets to the national championship for the second year. And Bama, like I said, I think they can get past Memphis. I think they have the best player in the country in Brandon Miller. And I think that they're good enough to get to the championship. But my morality cannot pick Bama to win the national championship. So I'm going to pick the back-to-back. I'll go Grady Dick. I'll go Jalen Smith. I will go with – or Jalen Wilson, excuse me. I'll go with the Kansas Jayhawks.
Good picks, both of you guys. I mean, there, like you said, and like I said at the beginning of the show, there's about 10 teams I think can win this tournament. I think this is going to be a year of just – and again, more chaos than you can see in years past. I may say that every year, but this is the year where there's been multiple number 1 seeds getting knocked out and the top 10 changes every week. That being said, I kind of went with just really good programs, complete teams, good coaches. I had Alabama and Baylor in the Elite Eight from the South region. I had Baylor in the Final Four. I think they have great guard play. Scott Drew's been there. I think they have a pretty decent path to go. The East region is the region that, Niko, you took my pick, and I'm going to say it as well. I like Memphis. I do like Memphis. I think they have the pieces. They have the guard play. They have the bigs. They have the defense. They can just get over the hump and get through the first game against who are they playing? I think in their first game, I think they were playing
FAU.
Yeah,
FAU. Yeah, that FAU will give them some trouble. I think if they can get going, I think they can beat Purdue. They definitely can beat Purdue and move forward from there. I have them playing Kentucky in the Elite Eight, so I think Kentucky makes a run, but falls a little short. In the Midwest, I have a pretty popular pick. I have Texas over Houston. Could be flipped either way. I could see Houston back in the Final Four again. I think Texas is one of those teams that is my riskiest pick, I think, out of the 4 for me, just because I think they present a lot of challenges when it comes to scoring inside. They have good defense. They have good three-point shooting, but can they score inside? Can they get stops? Can they turn over the ball? They have more stops and have less turnovers is what I'm trying to say.
Hold on. Before you move on, ladies and gentlemen, Jeremy is betting against his happiness, so he is picking Houston to beat Indiana. I just wanted to make sure we got that in there.
Yes, I think Houston does. Houston's guards will cook Indiana. So if Indiana's in the Final Four, you'll be hearing from me.
Jeremy will be in a sentence.
I will be in Houston. I guarantee that. And then this has been the team that I've been high on all year. I think has been well-rounded top to bottom. They have a very good experience. They're a complete team. They have good scoring. They have great turnover margin. They can shoot the 3. I think the most complete team is UCLA this year. I think UCLA beats Texas in the Final Four. I think Baylor beats Memphis. I think we have a UCLA versus Baylor championship game, and I have UCLA winning it all. So UCLA is my pick to win it all. I think they have the most complete team, and I think that this is the year where a lot of teams, you can coin toss a lot of these teams, but I'm going to really lean on veteran leadership and good coaching.
Yeah, Jaime Hawkins has got those boys rolling. He's one of the best rebounders in college basketball too. I look, all of my bracket is subject to change. I said Kentucky's in my Elite Eight. When in reality, I picked them to lose in Providence the first round. Now that I'm looking at it, so I had Memphis beating Marquette. But either way, like I said, I'll probably have UCLA winning one of my brackets too. I like this team a lot. I really do think that Kansas UCLA game could be the determining factor of who can knock off Bama, if we're being honest with ourselves. I think Baylor has a very good chance. And I think obviously whoever comes out of the East has a good chance, but I think that we could be looking at a national champion coming out of that Kansas UCLA matchup.
And one of the things I'd like to mention about that Alabama game, I know we're running low on time here. Alabama, if they play a team like Virginia, Alabama gets sloppy with the ball sometimes, and they play a team like Virginia. Could be an interesting matchup. Virginia could limit their possessions, and just the inexperience with Alabama scares me. I know that's everybody's darling pick, and everybody seems to be behind Alabama, number 1 overall seed. That team has proven that they can turn over the ball a lot. If they run into a team that's more experienced with better coaching and a little bit better guard play, I caution Alabama people that are picking Alabama. I would say stick to more the college football Final Four, not college basketball Final Four.
My champion is Houston, by the way. I'm going with the story. Jim Nantz gets to call his alma mater winning. I have them beating Arizona in the championship game. So that was a solid. Like I said, if we would have talked about every game like we did last year, we were there for 4.5 hours. So we cut it in half. Hopefully next year we'll be able to maybe even bring that down a little bit more. But I think it was awesome. Jeremy, thank you again for coming on, sharing your basketball wisdom with us. If it was just me and Nico, there would be a lot of, I don't know. I really have no idea what to go on. So I appreciate you jumping on. And obviously you're one of the original bench warmers. You have the swag to prove it. So we appreciate you jumping on and sharing your time with us. That was awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me on. Obviously love college basketball. And I'm looking forward to hopefully getting some more gear this year. Once my bracket is a perfect bracket. So that'll be good. But nothing will make me happier than watching my boys hopefully make a big run. And I would say the same for Niko as well. If GCU were to,
hey, I don't need a big run. I just need a little run. I just want to have a little bit of fun. And I want to have it this weekend at the expense of Gonzaga and TCU. So that's all I care about.
And furthermore, boys, appreciate you guys having me on. I've always loved coming on and chit-chatting with you guys and enjoy, obviously, probably one of the best times of the year because it really doesn't get better than this as far as just constant, I would say, from about 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. of just nonstop sports, and all you got to do is really sit on the couch and watch the game. So not a problem. Bad problem to have.
Work is tough. Look, we're no longer having to watch it in class. Now we're listening to the games and watching it during work, which can be a little bit tougher at times.
So work hard on tomorrow and then Wednesday, so you can enjoy your Thursday and Friday. Because
exactly get everything you need to get done for the week today or to Tuesday and Wednesday, so that Thursday, Friday you can just slide through the day and watch basketball.
Yeah. And since I know everyone is taking that time at work to fill out their brackets, I have it at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching live on YouTube or if you're watching the replay, it's posted on all of our social medias at FEOTB Pod. Join our group 2023 FEOTB March Madness. If you win, if you dethrone Niko as the defending champion, you get free new merchandise, and you also get a gift card to one of the VSN sponsors. So there's going to be incentive to win. There is reason you submit 25 brackets anyways, put one into the group and see what happens. But this has been awesome. March Madness breakdown. Make sure, like I said, follow all the socials, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enjoy the weekend of college basketball and the month that we have of college basketball moving forward to Houston and NRG Stadium. Hopefully the Cougars are taking home that trophy so that Jimmy can get the new swag and get the gift card especially not having known what I've been talking about. But for all of us here, Jeremy, Niko, and myself, thank you, Benchwarmers, for tuning in. We will catch you guys next week.
What's up, baby?
Go Hoosiers. Thanks, guys.
If you don't stay down and you never quit, come on over here and sit.